Hey now, it's a feel-good Friday afternoon on 580 Sports Talk. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. He's Spencer Dupuis. 4 hours of 580 Sports Talk coming your way today, plus a jam-packed guest list for you. We're jacked up about the show. We are jacked up that you are joining us as well. You can let us know your thoughts on whatever we're talking about on the program today, either on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or you can find us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of our YouTube channel. We've got a bunch to get to. We'll talk some Chiefs football here in just a few moments, including the fact that I have gone all in on something we talked about on yesterday's show when it comes to adding some talent to the offense. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. We'll talk about the AFC West later in the show and the other AFC contenders as well, along with the Chiefs. What other needs do the rest of the best teams in the AFC have to figure out before the season begins a little bit later on this summer? Ball in the 3 o'clock hour. Some questions on offense. The team is doing well overall. Pitching's been great. Bobby Witt Jr. has been incredible. Vinny Pasquantino coming into his own after the slow start to the season. But is it time to shake things up a little bit with some of the personnel on the offensive side, the position players? We'll touch on that in the 3 o'clock hour. Royals back in action tonight, by the way, 6:40 first pitch, 6 o'clock pregame start time here on 580 WIBW and the Royals Radio Network. Tomorrow against the Rangers, sold out at the K. How about that?
There you go.
An early May sellout for Royals baseball. Hard to have imagined that a year ago at this time.
I feel like even in March.
Yeah, I mean, that's now 2 sellouts already for the Royals.
People have spoken, and they want to see Michael Wacha pitch.
That is a fact. I will also tell you this about demand for Royals games. Ticket prices going up. Just checked yesterday. Tickets a little more expensive, not by a lot, but a little bit more expensive if you want to go out to the K, which in a way is obviously crappy because you want it to be affordable, but B is a good thing because it means more people want to go out to the game.
It's also Star Wars night, which is a always successful promotion.
Tonight or tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Right.
That's May 4th.
Oh, yes.
Or May the 4th. Yeah, you're going to be able to smell Kauffman Stadium from Nebraska.
You ever been to a Star Wars night at any ballpark?
No, I've not.
I inadvertently went to a Star Wars night at Coors Field once, and I don't think it coincided with May 4th either. I think it was just like, hey, we're doing Star Wars night.
It's a very new thing.
Yeah, like it's clever. Like, I get it. It's a running joke, and if you can tie it in, that's great. But look, I'm not anti-Star Wars or anti-sci-fi. It's not my jam, but I've seen like the original Star Wars movies. They're good movies. They're fun to watch. I'm not here to hate on it, but yes, it does make for an interesting clientele at the ballpark.
Yeah. I went to one as well, now that you say that.
It's a different crowd, right?
Yeah, it was like in early June. I'd actually won tickets to this game from Sports Talk Radio in DC.
Oh, no kidding.
Back in, what is it? Let me go on my Instagram. 2019. And me and my buddy have a picture. My buddy likes Star Wars a lot more than I do. I'm the casual guy, like I'll watch it.
Sure.
And I know who you guys are. So we have a picture with Chewbacca and Luke Skywalker from June 16th of 2019.
All right, that's actually pretty cool. That's like cool.
I mean, I could tell you Star Wars night at Coors Field in 2015, 14, whatever it was that I went. I want to say it was 15. They did not book Chewbacca. There might have been 3 or 4
dudes who looked like Chewbacca.
Yes, without the mask. But no, I don't think they booked a real Chewbacca.
That's pretty funny.
But no, it's cool. And it just goes to show you, like, it doesn't take much.
No! Trying hard is enough.
It doesn't take much because Kansas City's such a great baseball town and Royals fans are such great fans. Just show a modicum of a pulse. And they're going to come out to the K. And they're going to fill that place. Even though it's rotting and decaying and the concrete's bad, they're going to come and they're going to fill it up.
Yeah, where's our guy John Sherman's new ballpark?
Yeah, where is he? We're waiting for his comment.
They're going to build the Millennium Falcon at the new stadium. For what it's worth, I made fun of Star Wars fans. I talked about Star Wars a lot this past weekend with my friends who are also nerds, just like I am. Also today, I mentioned that guest list we're going to get to this hour. Andy Weingarten is going to join us, our horse racing expert, formerly of WIBW and Wave 3 in Louisville. He's going to join us to preview the Derby coming up here in about 30 minutes or so. Matt Derrick will stop by for our usual Friday afternoon Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And we will talk to Tim Fitzgerald in the 4 o'clock hour today, 2 days later than normal because we didn't have a show for the most part on Wednesday. We'll have the Wildcat Wrap-up coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. Again, your texts to the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, and your comments on the YouTube stream are welcome as well. Yeah, Mark mentioning on YouTube, Cinco de Mayo this weekend as well. So for all of you margarita fans out there, enjoy Sunday. I'm sure it feels like a national holiday to you in that regard.
It does not appear that the Royals are doing anything Cinco de Mayo related for the Sunday afternoon home game. But if you would like a margarita, I'm sure you can purchase one at the ballpark for $18.50.
I'm sure you can.
$25.50. What are you talking about?
That's the double.
No, the double's 35.
All right, let's get to some Kansas City Chiefs football here. Late last night, it had not even been a day since I talked about what if you went out and signed DJ Chark? If you know you're not going to have Rashee Rice for, I would say we all agree, at least 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks. James Palmer, formerly of NFL Network, seemed to think the Chiefs are prepared for 8 or more weeks. They might not have Rashee Rice this coming season. Why not go out and sign a veteran wide receiver? Then last night, somewhere after 10 o'clock, I believe, maybe right around 10 o'clock, the Los Angeles Chargers said, nah, we're going to sign DJ Chark instead. 1 year, maximum value, $5 million. I assume the guarantee is well below that. That's a pretty good deal for a decent wide receiver, especially for a team that desperately needs one. So I would have done that if I was the Kansas City Chiefs. And the more I thought about it, the more I think I would have done that even without a Rashee Rice suspension. I don't want to sound too meatheady here and act like Patriots fans acted like for 20 years, where every player was going to go to them and they could do no wrong. And we should just build, Star Wars reference, build the Death Star year for year for year. But I kind of think that's actually the right thing to do here if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. Because why wouldn't you do that? Why wouldn't you try to raise your baseline as much as possible? Speaking of the Patriots and their dynasty, right? One of their calling cards was always making the shrewd signing, the under-the-radar signing, along with, cutting guys a year early rather than a year late. They were smart on the business side of things before Bill Belichick became really terrible at drafting in those last couple of years. That was their calling card. It got to a point where every single time any somewhat known player was released, all of Twitter and Instagram or wherever else would blow up, and NFL Live on ESPN and everywhere else with funny jokes about Bill Belichick and that one video of Bill Belichick walking out of the tunnel to Stone Cold Steve Austin's music and like, oh, Patriot, going to be a Patriot. They're going to make this move. That was one of their calling cards. Why shouldn't the Chiefs do the same thing? Because we talked about it yesterday. You bring in Xavier Worthy, you draft him not to be wide receiver 4, right? You draft a guy, you move up into the first round, you move into the top 30 to go and get a guy who's going to be a contributor and probably a fairly big one right away. But what if you added someone else, you added a veteran, so you could add a little extra cushion for that rookie so he doesn't have to be really good right away. You go out and you add even a decent option who can make that baseline for your wide receiver room even better. Because which baseline, which basement would you prefer for your team? If you're talking like 4 receivers, because every team keeps at least 5, but 4 is usually kind of the number you stick with. If you go empty, if you're the Chiefs, you're usually running 4 wide receivers, 1 tight end, right? Travis Kelce's out there. Who would you rather have as your wide receiver 4? Michael Thomas, or throw someone else there. Could have been DJ Chark, could have been any number of guys who are still out there. Or Kadarius Toney, who, by the way, the Chiefs declined the 5th-year option on yesterday. To me, I would rather go with the former. I would rather just say, you know what? We've gone through 2 years in a row of substandard wide receiver rooms. Last year, far worse than 2 years ago because Juju Smith-Schuster had a good year. Why not make sure we can avoid that? We won a Super Bowl with a wide receiver room that stunk for most of the year. Why risk it again? Why go through a year where we can't get the number 1 seed? Just go fill up that wide receiver room as much as possible. I feel like I'm kind of meatheady saying that, but then Seth Keiser wrote the same thing for the Chief in the North newsletter yesterday, and I felt a lot smarter about this take.
Yeah, I wouldn't call any of Seth Keiser's takes particularly meatheady.
No.
That being said, so who would you have considered wide receiver 4 for the Chiefs last year? I'm going to give you maybe that's not the right way to approach this, but here are the wide receiver targets for the Kansas City Chiefs in 2023.
Okay.
Rashee Rice got 102 targets. Justin Watson got 53 targets. MVS, 42 targets. Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore each got 38 targets. So that's what you're really looking for from wide receiver 4 on this team is something in the neighborhood of 30 to 50 targets. And if it's just 30 to 50 targets spread out over 17 weeks, I could argue that there's still a higher ceiling for those targets if they're Kadarius Toney targets than there is if they're veteran X targets.
What happens in week 3 when he's hurt?
Then
like he can't stay on the feet because we talked about this so much during the playoffs.
Yeah,
I agree. The ceiling is high, but you can't trust him. He can't get on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how the Chiefs evaluate him internally. Like, do they look at last year's like, okay, this was a lost year. He never practiced. We threw him out there week 1. He had a bad game. He lost confidence. Never got that rapport with Mahomes. Let's give him a clean slate with one more year to prove himself. We're not going to bring him back for the 5th year. We're not going to pick up the option. But let's give him one more year while we've got him. It's a first-round talent. It's potentially game-breaking talent. If he can be healthy through training camp and get some confidence and get that rapport back, there's a ceiling here for wide receiver 4, Kadarius Toney. And again, you're asking something completely different of this player than you were asking last year.
Sure.
Because last year, you came into the year thinking Kadarius Toney's wide receiver 1.
Yeah.
And throughout the year, as the wide receiver group struggled, there was this thought of, man, if he could just get right. Man, if Kadarius Toney could just get healthy, could just get right, he would give this wide receiver core something that they absolutely don't have. Neither of those things are true anymore. Now, you go into training camp with Kadarius Toney's wide receiver number 4. And you say, let's see if we can't hit some home runs with these 30 to 50 targets we might give to wide receiver 4. That being said, also, let's consider this as a possibility. Tight end 2 got 41 targets last year. That was Noah Gray.
Yep.
Do we think maybe we see a lot more 2 tight end stuff this next year with Jared Wiley in the fold?
Yeah.
Sure. That's certainly possible.
That we see so much more 2 tight end stuff that wide receiver 4 maybe gets the 21 targets that McCole Hardman got last year in 6 games. That's a lot of targets for 6 games.
There's a lot.
I mean, a lot of those, I think the bulk of those maybe even came in the week 18 game where he was wide receiver 1 for a day. But, maybe they're the 25 combined targets that Richie James and Justin Ross got. Those 2 played a combined 19 games, got 25 targets. Maybe that's what the kind of input you're looking for out of wide receiver 4, in which case I don't think it's worthwhile to spend $5 to $8 million.
Sorry, real quick. You're right. 11 of those targets came in 1 game.
Exactly.
Look, I know more.
11 targets, 6 catches, 77 yards. Yeah.
Very
so
funny.
In his other 5 games, he had 10 targets.
Right.
That sounds a little more
2 targets a game.
Yeah.
You want to spend $5 million on somebody additional, a veteran who might want more touches than that, and you're only asking 2 targets a game for him? Or do you want to say, hey, Kadarius, we're going to these targets are going to be some pop passes, and we're going to see if we can't catch the defense off guard. We're going to see if you can't run by somebody for 15 and a first down. I mean, he's already on hand. The bird in the hand, right? May as well see, because the upside is still there. And this time around, this season, unlike last, the downside isn't you're giving a bunch of targets to a guy who can't catch anything, and the ball's going to the other team every time it bounces off his hands. Like the downside this year with Kadarius Toney is, oh no, we threw him a whip route on a 1st and 10, and he only turned it into 4 yards. Okay, well, he comes out in the sub package. We're going back to 2 tight ends. We're going back to Justin Watson, and Kadarius Toney can sit on the bench and enjoy his paycheck.
I would like to add, by the way, for the sake of accountability, I know I was talking about, well, Kadarius Toney can't get on the field, and I also mentioned Michael Thomas as a possible fill-in player, which is hilariously ironic because he also can't stay on the field. But if even to take him out of the equation, you throw in, a Renfro. I know you said you think Tyler Boyd will probably get a contract somewhere. Sure, I think he's a really good player. But Zay Jones, one of these other guys, I think you could throw in place of the name Michael Thomas that I used a little earlier. I don't disagree with any of the logic you used. I guess the stance I'm just taking is, like, why not? Like, why not go for it? for it. Spencer, we were talking about cap space yesterday. Right now, if you took the Chiefs 53, like if you took every single player the Chiefs have contracted right now, they're over the cap. If you only take the top 51, which is all you have to worry about for the offseason, they've got $15 million in space left. They can restructure a couple offensive linemen. If you extend Creed Humphrey or Trey Smith or Nick Bolton, that's going to open up more space.
Yeah.
So they've got the room to make a move if they want.
That makes sense now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I thought the same thing. I went to two sites and thought, what was Spencer talking about? I see 15, I see 16. Then I looked a little deeper and thought, okay, I see where we got the confusion. So I guess for me, it just comes down to, if you've got the ability to do it, why not do it? Just add as many potential weapons as you can to this group. And maybe it doesn't work out, and maybe the Chiefs disagree with me. And if that's the case, they're probably right, because more often than not, they've been right when building the team during the Brett Veach era. I'm not going to complain about that.
So obviously I wasn't here last year, but what were your thoughts last year about the receiver group, with Kadarius Toney being the guy when they just drafted Rashee Rice?
I was skeptical. Speaking for myself, I was skeptical about Kadarius Toney being able to handle wide receiver one workload, but I was more convinced, and still remain a little bit convinced, that there is a big play ceiling that he has, that he can do things on a football field that very few guys can when he has the ball in space. I still think that's true about Kadarius Toney. The problem is getting him the ball in the first place proved last year to be harder than it sounded, and B, more trouble than it was worth.
Getting him to stay on the field.
Yeah, that was my thing. I believe I used the phrase cautiously optimistic almost every single day. Like,
right.
Chiefs were talking about him like he was going to be a superstar.
Yes.
We heard it from the coaches, the players. We heard it from reporters. Like, everyone was all in on, and he's good.
That blew up on them, and then they ended up still winning a Super Bowl.
And they still... That dude, I am a fan of another team, but we all can kind of adopt the Chiefs since we cover this team. Like, if I was a fan of Jacksonville, never won a thing, I would be so pissed. Just are you kidding me? That you have a bottom 8 wide receiver room in the league. Patrick Mahomes has one reliable weapon and a rookie, and they don't get the bye, and they still win? What the hell?
I would love to tell you some of the things my friends who are Bronco fans have to say about Patrick Mahomes. And
Chiefs, I believe it.
But I don't have the deep enough pockets for the FCC fines, frankly. So we'll avoid all that. But no, it wasn't just that, Kadarius Toney's going to be wide receiver number 1. We thought Sky Moore was going to be wide receiver number 2. And we were like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yes.
But two guys that really came on late, scored big touchdowns in a Super Bowl victory. And we looked at that wide receiver room and was like, all right, bet. With those two with Mahomes, all right, they'll make it shake.
Yeah.
Maybe Rashee Rice will be wide receiver 4.
We thought if he gets to 400, 500 yards, that'd be good. And it's awesome that he turned out to be way better than that right away. That's awesome. I don't know if you caught it yesterday when we were talking about the receivers. Our guy, Jesse Newell, who's great. Jesse's the best. He predicted last year in training camp that Sky Moore would have 900 receiving yards. And we all, you, me, and Jake, whoa, all right. If Jesse says it, Mr. Analytics, we're in. I'm all in. It did not turn out that way.
Clearly.
It did not quite work out like that. But yeah, that's essentially where I'm coming from, though, is just why not? Why not take the heat check? If you're hitting all these shots over and over, hand in the face, fading left to right, why not take the heat check from 35 feet once in a while? Also, speaking of the Chiefs, we already got to Kadarius Toney. No one surprised. 5th-year option was declined, right?
Nope.
No.
Yeah. Go have a great year and get a paycheck. Because you know what? The Chiefs have shown, and I will give Brett Veach credit for this, they have shown if you are on a 1-year deal and then you play really well, they will bring you back. A lot of teams won't. They bring you in intending full term. You're here for 1 year. And if you have a great year and you get paid, well, cool. Best of luck to you. The Chiefs, Drew Tranquil, great example of this. The Chiefs are willing to say, hey, look, you won. You bet on yourself and you hit big. We will bring you back. Best case scenario is that's Kadarius Toney this year, is that he stays healthy or plays 12 plus games at least, and doesn't have a drop problem.
And he's the fit in the offense that they envisioned when they traded for him in the first place. That was the wildest thing about them bringing him in, is the draft capital they gave up to get Kadarius Toney in the first place was not commiserate with a guy you go get thinking he's going to be wide receiver 1. So for them to have pivoted last offseason and said, yeah, this is wide receiver number 1 for us, that was always a little weird.
Yes. It was very weird. The way the Chiefs handled last offseason was very weird, all things considered. That shoot, it worked out.
It did.
Also wanted to get to this real quick. I don't know which one of you found this from The Athletic.
Mike Sando has done his best and worst draft classes, getting reaction from executives, coaches throughout the league, anonymous reaction for all 32 teams and their draft classes. And today published the reaction to the AFC draft classes, including the Chiefs.
The quotes here are incredible. One exec said to Mike Sando, quote, "They won the Super Bowl, but they should be blowing dudes out like they used to. Xavier Worthy will make it easier to do that with Travis Kelce getting older." Well, he says with the tight end. Come on, man. Don't. Travis Kelce is above that. Yeah. Call the man by his name.
Exactly.
You know who Travis Kelce is.
But there's a lot of truth to that quote, because the last 2 seasons, with the absence of that deep threat, it has been harder for the Chiefs to score points. Last year, it looked like pulling teeth for the Chiefs to move the ball down the field. Now, they could still do it because Andy Reid is still Andy Reid. Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. And you give those two enough time, they're going to figure some things out. They're going to score enough with the defense that they had to win a championship. But, yeah, those days where it felt like, oh, the Chiefs' offense is coming out on the field, how are they going to score on this drive? Like, I know they're going to, but how are they going to do it? Like, that bit of mystique had gone away for the Chiefs last season. And the ability to strike from anywhere on the field and open up the defense, take the top off of it a little bit, that's been lacking the last 2 years. Worthy gives them that back is the idea.
This quote is also very funny. "They kind of know how to build a team there," an exec said of the Chiefs. Andy is like, "Yeah, that was a pain in the ass without Tyreek Hill, so let's go get a guy who is faster than Tyreek, see if we can take the top off." And Spags is like, "What about corner?" And Andy is like, "Yeah, figure it out, blitz more." That's what it seems like. It worked. When you've got the dudes and you've got A-plus coaching, that's what you get. Yeah. You get a team that wins the Super Bowl regardless of the fact that they had one of the worst wide receiver rooms in the league. Very impressive. And again, if you're a Bronco fan, a fan of any other AFC team, I'd be so mad. I would be so incredibly mad all the time.
They can't keep getting away from this.
Except they do.
Let's see how old Patty Mahomes wriggles out of this jam. Patty Mahomes wriggles out of jam incredibly easily. Well, nevertheless.
Yeah, it's just year after year after year. Coming up next, we've got Change My Mind, and then we'll talk to our horse racing expert, Andy Weingarten, to preview the Kentucky Derby. That's coming up in this opening hour of 580 Sports Talk. 580 Sports Talk, just getting started on this Feel Good Friday afternoon. Brendan, Dan, and Spencer here with you. If you have a comment from Paul on YouTube, he says, I believe Moore and Tony can contribute positively, but they'll have to do so with minimal opportunities, which only scrutinizes their mistakes that much harder. Won't be hard to fall out of kingdom favor. I think that's a fair take.
I think the thing that you're talking about has already happened.
Yeah.
I don't think they could be any further out of favor than they are right now. And like you said, fewer opportunities make the mistakes hurt less.
Yeah, that's true too.
Ideally, unless they're like cataclysmic. Oh my gosh, Kadarius Toney just volleyball set an interception and a pick six to the other team's safety again. He really almost did that twice last year.
The craziest stat of the entire NFL season was Kadarius Toney had a -6 and change EPA in one game.
Yeah, it was the season opener.
That seems impossible.
He was worth a negative touchdown, like in a 1-point game.
There are quarterbacks who have decent days that don't affect a game that much. Just unbelievable how bad he was week 1 against Detroit. All right, it's changed my mind time. We'll get to the Chiefs a little bit later on. We've got some Royals to get to next hour. We'll talk Kentucky Derby coming up here in just a couple of moments. Changed my mind. This actually just came across my Twitter. The sleeved NBA jerseys were the worst uniforms of all time.
Man, they were pretty bad.
They were.
The Cavaliers, one of the most famous championship wins in the history of the sport was worn in athletic dry fit t-shirts.
Yeah. Now that's the worst. Like when you got a jersey that your team wears that you just don't like or that doesn't look good, you almost hope they don't do anything iconic. Like I don't like the Nuggets 52-80 black uniforms they've been wearing this year, but Jamal Murray hit a playoff game-winning buzzer beater in them. So I'm going to have to see him until the end of time, and I'm just going to have to deal with that. So, the fact that the Cavaliers won their only title in franchise history in some T-shirts, that hurts. They are. Those were really, like, as a uniform concept, only the White Sox wearing shorts that one time is worse.
We gotta go quickly here, Dan. What you got?
Change my mind. No new rings is the way to be a fan if you are watching the playoffs. You don't root for other teams or players to get new championships if your team can't have one. No new rings. The haters' doctrine. Argue me off of it.
No.
So you don't. So if you have a team that's not your favorite team that you want to win,
like. If I'm watching these NBA playoffs, for instance, I do not want the Thunder or the Timberwolves to win because they've never won before, and I don't want no new rings. No new rings. Boston, fine. New York, whatever. No new rings.
I inherently only believe that about baseball because my favorite team had to wait 108 years to win a championship. Like
that's where I feel it the most because that's only where my team has never won.
Like any Brewers fan who goes, 108 years, bro, where's your ring? Where's your title, Milwaukee? Give me a break. The Cubs are playing the Brewers right now. But like football, the Packers won 13 NFL championships. The Bulls had the greatest dynasty post Celtics in the NBA. Like I was barely alive for that, but like I would feel hypocritical. Baseball, though, I had to wait a long time. Y'all got to wait a long time.
No,
I was actively rooting against the Nationals. I will tell you that. I was actively rooting against the Nationals.
Last year, I was rooting against Vegas in the hockey playoffs. I was rooting against Texas in the World Series. No new rings. I don't care that something good happened to a long-suffering fan base. It should have happened to me instead.
Spencer, what's your question for today?
My change my mind is that I think the Chiefs know something and they want Luis Rees-Zammit to make a big impact on their team because the NFL officially handed out the international exemptions yesterday and they didn't apply for one for him. They applied for one for Jason Godric. So they have something that nobody knows about.
No, I'm in agreement with you, dude. They gave a dude who's never touched a football before guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Like there's something they want from him.
There's something big that they're not telling you.
No, I'm in agreement with you.
Yeah, that it might be a canary in a coal mine kind of situation there. Might be a real indicator that they think he could make their 53.
Turn my mic off for a second. We will get to a quick commercial break. When we come back, Andy Weingarten will join us to break down the Kentucky Derby on 580 Sports Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, it is one of my favorite weekends of the entire sports calendar, and it is one of our favorite interviews every single year on 580 Sports Talk. I don't even know how many years it's been, Andy, that you have been joining us, but on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, we are joined by our horse racing expert, formerly of WIBW, formerly of Wave 3 TV in Louisville. His name is Andy Weingarten. Nobody who comes on these airwaves knows the ponies better than Andy. My friend, how have you been doing?
Oh, it's been great. It's been great. I say we've been doing this. I think I've done it at least 30 years, maybe more than that.
Man,
I think this probably goes back to the around 1990, something like that.
How about that? Well, we are super excited, Andy, that you're here to join us and to get prepared for the first leg of the Triple Crown. Before we get to the actual horses, the actual race this year, I wanted to ask you about one of the big storylines off the track. Well, somewhat off the track anyway. Bob Baffert is still banned from Churchill Downs and the Kentucky Derby. Do you feel like that is appropriate? I've seen some writing this week about this is the right thing, this is the wrong thing. Do you feel like it's right for one of the most famous horse trainers out there to still be banned from the event?
Not this year. The first 2 years, 100% in favor of it, but he finally admitted wrongdoing. He did everything that Churchill Downs asked him to do. And when they met a few weeks back, they still decided to keep the suspension in place for another year. So from that perspective, no, I don't agree with it. But the first 2 years when, basically wouldn't take responsibility for what happened, I absolutely agreed with it. But this year, I think he should have been allowed to return.
Do you think something like that does any sort of, and maybe damage is too strong of a word, but like people don't, the general public doesn't know a lot of people who are behind the scenes or the trainers in horse racing. Does it hurt to have one of the actual recognizable faces of the sport not be present or only be present in terms of the narrative around him?
Well, I don't think it hurts. It probably doesn't help, but I don't think it really hurts because you still have, many other just classic trainers out there, owners, and it's about the horses and the pageantry anyway. So, there's no one, I don't think there's any one person big enough or bigger than the Derby itself. So I don't think it hurts, but it would probably be a little more helpful if he was there. Certainly would be more flamboyant.
That is certainly true. No doubt about that. Well, Andy, this year's race, if I'm not mistaken, is it the 150th Derby this year?
This is 150. It's been a big deal around here for weeks. It's a nice round number, and they've basically done everything upright. There's been a lot of investment in the track. I think people are going to be fascinated, and I'm assuming NBC will do a big story on all the improvements that have taken place. They have upgraded the paddock area, and it's just, it's like a palace now. Absolutely wonderful. So no expense has been spared for Derby 150.
Hey, that's absolutely the way it should be. What does the field look like to you this year? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we've got 20 horses who are still set to race, a couple of scratches so far. Just generally speaking, big picture wise, what are some of the big storylines or maybe the overall traits of this group that'll be racing tomorrow evening?
I think it's a stronger field than years past, and I think there are more of them. I actually, even though it's a stronger field, I think it makes for a wide open race. As a matter of fact, people are going to be talking about the favorite, and I'm sure we'll get to him in a moment. But I'm going to tell you off the top that I don't have the favorite in my top three. I look for reasons not to, and I found out what I think are two. Well, one legitimate one, and one kind of quirky reason. That I don't like the horse, but I think it's a great field, and I think it's going to be a wide open race.
Andy Weingarten is our guest on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, formerly of WIBW TV and Wave 3 TV in Louisville, Kentucky, joining us as he does annually to preview the Kentucky Derby here on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get to that betting line favorite, Andy. Fierceness running out of I believe the 16th post, originally drew the 17, but got moved up. There was a scratch and a horse got entered, and they put him in the 20th post and moved everybody up a spot. So Fierceness is running out of the 16th post. He's a 5-2 favorite. Got John Velasquez as his jockey. Todd Pletcher is his trainer. What don't you like about the favorite?
Well, one of the things actually was just taken care of by moving into the 16 hole, because the little quirk is that no horse in 49 years has ever won the Derby coming out of the 17 hole, which I found amazing. Now, granted, for many, many years, there wasn't a 20-horse field. It was limited to 14. But ever since it's been expanded, and I guess we're about 30 or 40 years, 35 or 40 years into that, no horse has ever won from the 17 hole. That's the quirky part. What I legitimately have an issue with, he's probably the best horse in the field if he runs, but he's in every other race. He has run 5 races. 3 of them have been absolutely dominant, including the last one. But after he runs a dominant race, the next one is a little bit more than lackluster. And I don't think a 20-horse Derby field is the race where you want to be running a little lackluster. And that's been the trend. His first, third, and fifth races of his career were great. His second and fourth races, and this will be his sixth, not so great. And so I don't see him firing. I think he may have peaked too soon, because he absolutely obliterated the field in the Florida Derby.
Which horses going into this race, do you look at their trainer or you look at their jockey and say, because of who's going to be on the ride or because of who has trained this horse, I got to take this horse real seriously as a threat to win this thing?
Well, you used to do that with Bob Baffert, certainly, as a trainer. If he ran a horse, you took him seriously. The jockeys, not so much anymore, because there's so many good ones now, and they're used to running in this type of not this crowded a race, because they'll never. The only race they run 20 horses in is the Kentucky Derby. It never happens anywhere else. But it'd be more the trainer. But without Bob Baffert in there, I don't really have a trainer that I'm going to look at and say, yeah, I'm going to take this guy seriously. Todd Pletcher might be the closest, and of course he's got the favorite in this race. And I believe that's the only one. Yeah, I believe that's the only horse he's running this year. So that's a little bit unusual. But other than that, no, not really going to take that part too seriously.
Let's look at some of the others running this race. The second favorite betting wise, 3-1 odds, Sierra Leone out of the number 2 post, trained by Chad Brown. What are your thoughts on this horse, and how seriously should we be taking the second favorite?
Well, so you will not hear much of anything from Sierra Leone until the last 3/16. In fact, he may very well at the half mile into the race be dead last. Very, very possibly. He's a deep closer. Came from way off the pace when his last race, which I believe was the Bluegrass Stakes. And if he gets a clean trip, which is always the concern in a 20-horse field, it should be wide open for him. I think it's a horse you take very seriously, based on the way he runs and the way he's run the last 3 races as a 3-year-old.
We're chatting with Andy Weingarten. He is our horse racing expert, formerly of WIBW TV and Wave 3 TV in Louisville, joining us to preview the Kentucky Derby, which is coming up tomorrow. You'll be able to see that on television on NBC, which always does a fantastic job. Always have to talk about the conditions, obviously, Andy, for the Kentucky Derby. What is it looking like in terms of wetness, dryness? What is the forecast for the Derby tomorrow?
I think it'll end up being a fast track. There is a shower chance, off and on showers during the course of the day, as long as they don't get enough rain, and I don't think they will, where they call it sealing the track. As long as that isn't an issue, I think it'll end up being a fast track, because I just don't think there'll be enough rain. We actually were supposed to get a fair amount of rain today for the Kentucky Oaks, over an inch. So far, I think there's only been about a quarter of an inch. So I don't think rain's going to be much of an issue. If it is, I've got one horse that I would absolutely love on a wet track that very few people are talking about, that we can get to that when the predictions come in.
Yeah, and we'll get to that here in a moment, because I was going to ask, we talk about other sports. Football is a great example of this. We always talk about the weather as the great equalizer. If it's snowing or if it's super rainy, well, neither quarterback can throw very well, and it's hard to run and cut and all of that. That makes things difficult for everybody. In horse racing, does that even things out, or are there certain horses that are just built better for racing in the conditions?
Well, there are certain horses. Just looking at how they've done as a 2 and a 3-year-old, there are certain horses that run better in the mud. So I've got, and I think that will definitely come into play if it does rain. Certain horses like it. Most horses don't. Certainly, come from behind horses are not fans of a muddy track because they get so much mud thrown back at them. While they're pacing behind. So front runners maybe not so much on a muddy track. Come from behind horses really don't like it.
I know I've asked you this question before, Andy. What is the type of racer that you usually look toward? And maybe you don't have a specific preference. I, once upon a time, loved the closers. I don't know why I associated that with being the tougher horses, being the ones that I always wanted to pick. Do you prefer the closers, the stalkers, the front runners? What is normally where you trend with your picks?
Well, at Churchill Downs, in most races, you like the closers. The problem with the Kentucky Derby is if you've got a closer, he's got to get around, 18, 19 horses. And there's just a traffic issue. In a typical race at Churchill Downs, because of the long stretch run, I've always been a big fan of closers up until the Derby went to a 20-horse field when it was only a 12 or a 14-horse field. I think closers, or at least horses off the pace, won it more often than not. Nowadays, not as much. There are still a few horses out there that will go to the lead. A Justify, for example, goes to the lead right away, holds it wire to wire. I think Big Brown did it, and there were a couple of others, in the last 15 years that have done that. But nowadays, it seems like the stalkers. There may be 5-6 lengths off the lead with a half mile left to run, make their move at the top of the stretch, and then just pull away. And that seems to be the horses that most people like nowadays, are the ones that are kind of between the pace setters and the closers.
We're chatting with Andy Weingarten, our horse racing expert, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline, formerly of WIBW, and WAVE Television, getting ready for the Kentucky Derby coming up tomorrow, early evening, late afternoon, depending on where you are listening to us. I've got to ask you every year when we get you on for the Derby, Andy, the long shots this year. Always love to find a favorite long shot in the group. I, of course, jump right to guys like Catalytic, who came off this morning at 30-1. I know we've got another 30-1 TO Password in the group this year. Grand Mo the First this morning, 50-1, Andy. Who are some of the long shots that you're keeping an eye on?
Well, I've got kind of a medium long shot in my top three. I would say, as far as the longest ones, the one I really took a hard look at and almost put him third is a horse called Stronghold. Right now, I think started at 20-1, is now 31-1 on the latest odds. That horse, seems to have the pedigree to go the distance, and frankly, not all of these horses really have that, but this one seems to, and that's one that I took a hard look at, but I think I've got him coming up just short, maybe fourth. I could see him finishing fourth.
All right, Andy, it is that time. Let's get to win, place, and show. We'll go 3, 2, 1. Who are your picks for the top three at the 150th Running of the Roses?
All right, for my show horse, I went with I believe it's the 7-horse, Forever Young. Forever Young is the horse that came from number 11, actually, is who it was. Came from the Japan circuit. The horses that come from the Japan racing circuit have never won a Kentucky Derby. Most of them don't even finish in the top three. I think this one, had he run in America, might be the favorite for the Kentucky Derby. I think he's got a shot, but you can't go against total history like that. So I didn't. So I've got Forever Young finishing a strong third.
All right, let's go to place. Who's finishing second?
This will be the horse that very few people have talked about, but I really like him. This is the 8-horse, Just a Touch. 13-1 on the current odds. I think it was 10-1 in the morning odds. This is a Justify horse. Justify was the sire to this one. This one is raced very similar to Justify. It's more of a pace setter. He may be at the front and then give it up right towards the end. But as a longer shot, I really like Just a Touch to finish second.
All right, Andy, who's your winner?
All right, I Fierceless. I told you why on that one, but I am going to go with the second choice Sierra Leone. Even though he's a deep closer, if he gets a clean trip, he's going to win the race. I'm a little bit concerned about any horse in a 20-horse field getting a clean trip, but what I really like is the fact that he's on the inside, not the outside. On the inside in the 2-hole, he can basically start the race and go straight, and he'll be on the rail right away, save the room. He doesn't have to try to move in like an outside horse would to save ground. Again, you won't hear much about this horse the first minute and 25 seconds of the race, but those last 30 seconds, don't be surprised if you hear him charging, coming up on the outside and winning the Kentucky Derby.
When we've got questions about the ponies, we reach out to our good friend Andy Weingarten, our horse racing expert, boots on the ground in Kentucky, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Andy, enjoy the Derby tomorrow. We appreciate it always so much when you jump on with us, and we'll talk to you in a few weeks to preview the Preakness.
You got it. We'll talk to you at the Preakness. I hope everybody enjoys the Derby. 150 is special. We're looking forward to it.
That is Andy Weingarten. He is the absolute best of the best when it comes to horse racing. Appreciate him taking some time for us today. We've got to get to a break for the news. We'll talk some Royals baseball to lead off the 3 o'clock hour right back here on 580 Sports Talk. now it's the 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzinski, Dan Lucero, and Spencer Dupuis all here with you in studio today. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Whether you are listening on 580 AM, 104.9 FM, checking us out online at 580wibw.com, or watching us live on YouTube at 580 Sports Talk. We thank you for being a part of the show today. You can also watch the video stream of the show if you're not on the YouTube, which I would recommend you are on YouTube, because that's where we stream the show every single day. It's where all of our game recaps go, all of our draft recap videos that Dan and Spencer so expertly did when the season rolls around. KU, K-State, Chiefs recaps, Washburn recaps, they'll all be on our YouTube channel. But if you're not there today, you can go and find the video on our website, 580wibw.com. You can also check it out on Facebook. Our page there is called WIBW News, and the 580 Sports Talk Twitter account is also where you can find the video today. Big shout out to our guy, Andy Weingarten, for joining us this past hour to preview the Kentucky Derby. Sierra Leone to win, just a touch to place, Forever Young to show. Those are the winners. I like his win in place a lot. I might just put the mortgage on all three of these. I really might.
I like Forever Young to win, like value wise.
Mm-hmm.
Forever Young, I think, is 8-1, 7-1, depending on where you look. Which you would have to look somewhere that is not perhaps legal in the state of Kansas, because you can't bet horse racing legally in Kansas. But I like Forever Young to win. I like Sierra Leone to place. And I like Mystic Dan out of the 3 spot.
I mean, you have to.
Yeah, right?
Mystic Dan.
Mystic Dan. That is MYSTIK, Mystic.
I like Doornotch.
Doornotch? That's the one horse.
Out of the one.
That's that is the horse that Jason Worth owns a share of.
There you go. Makes sense. I got a little worried when he said his favorite long shot was Stronghold, because Stronghold's running out of the 17 after he had just told us no horse has ever won from the 17. That worries me a little bit. What would you name your horse? You had a horse. What would you name it?
Win or your glue.
Wow, that's so dark.
I don't know.
I think I made a glue comment yesterday, though.
You did.
So, yeah, it is what it is.
No, this is an old John Boyce internet joke, but like I would name my horse a Huge Dog.
That's pretty funny. I don't even know where you start with, like, you call it horse Forever Young. Like, okay, that's fine, whatever. Like, how do you come up with West Saratoga? Like, is that just where you first bet on a horse and you just decided that's going to be its name? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious about how horses get their names. Some of them, I'm sure, have like real stories behind them. But,
Epic Ride, it just sounds like the first time you rode the horse.
Like I'm looking at some of the names of like winners of the Kentucky Derby historically, and some of them are like authentic, like boring. Country House, boring. Always Dreaming, boring.
Country House had that sweet drama.
Yeah, that was the 2019 one.
Yeah,
they had the horse that was he the one that won, and then they were going to disqualify him?
I think it was the other way. I think Maximum Security finished first, but then was disqualified because he had cut off a horse. Something like that. Illegal running. Yeah. Like, you got to go way back for like good horse names. Like 2000 winner, Fusiachi Pegasus. That goes crazy. Yeah, that's why. Although Real Quiet won in 1998. That goes hard. I think the back-to-back of, California Chrome was the cooler of the two, but California Chrome and American Pharaoh were pretty decent. Yeah, those go hard. Fusiachi Pegasus is nuts. Thunder Gulch kicks ass. Yeah. That was 1995. That one rules. Thunder Gulch is real cool. Like, that sounds like a Clint Eastwood movie. Sunday Silence. Hard. That's a Kendrick Lamar track. Foolish Pleasure. Seattle Slew. Fire Name Alert. Yeah, no, that's a great one. That's a really good one. If you go way back, like we're talking the early days of the Derby, I would have bet on Macbeth 2 back in 1888. I would have put 2 doubloons on Macbeth 2. The horse that won in 1932. Burgoo King. You rule. That's pretty good. See, the funny thing is that was way before Burger King was founded. Oh, 1954. That's really funny.
Burger King.
I'm going to guess that Flying Ebony in 1925 was probably a black horse. That's probably my guess. 1916's winner was just George Smith.
No, that rules. That's like people that name their dog like Joe.
That's like the Key and Peele skit.
Here's my cat, Steve.
Abby and I have always said one of our top choices for a dog name would just be like Henry. Regular old person name.
A lot of people I know name their dogs after hockey players.
That makes it,
You like, we live in like an area where there are a lot of Royals fans. Yeah. And I would say within like 100-mile radius of Kansas City, there are no fewer than 50,000 dogs named Moose.
And Salvi. I know multiple people with dogs named Salvi.
I met a dog at a bar once named Salvador Perez. He was wearing a backwards cap and chains and a vest and sunglasses. He was the coolest dog I've ever met in my entire life, and his name was Salvador Perez. He rules.
I know a few dogs named Ovi, Oshi, Backy.
I know a dog named Oshi, actually, owned by someone who was from St. Louis. So
Blues fan.
His previous stop.
Can you win a triple crown without a fire name? Like Whirl Away. That goes crazy. War Admiral.
Yeah, hard. War Admiral kicks butt.
Assault, 1946.
Assault.
That's a good one.
Gallant Fox.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Very noble.
Well, it depends. What do you think of Justify?
I get Justify kind of cool, I guess. One word.
Yeah.
One word horse names.
Like Rich Strike, I'm out on that one. Yeah. That won the Derby 2 years ago. I'm out on that one.
Orb won in 2013.
Man, I don't have like a lot of these. I remember Super Saver. I remember Mind That Bird was like an 8 million to 1 long shot.
Remember Barbaro? Barbaro broke down at the Preakness and had to be like,
it's horrible.
Terrible thing. Yeah. And the internet like went crazy. Like,
yes,
Facebook aunts and grandmas across the country were like writing songs to Barbaro. I remember this being like the majority of content at the website back in 2006.
I do not. I remember what happened. It was absolutely just terrible.
No, they didn't have to euthanize him on the track. He lived, but died. Died from complications. But there was a lot.
Yes,
that surrounded like Barbaro.
I genuinely do not remember Orb. That 2013 Derby does not exist in my brain. I watched it every year. I used to watch my dad all the time. I watched every year, and I do not remember that one.
I'm thinking about Burgu.
Burgu King. Man, there are some great horse things out there. 1945's winner, Hoop Jr. That is tremendous. We do have other sports played by humans to get to here in just a moment. The Royals, they're in action coming up tonight. We'll talk to the Royals baseball here in a second. We've also got On Second Thought and Matt Derrick are going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Your text, you're welcome on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429. And, of course, in the YouTube comments as well, 5 Sports Talk on YouTube. A post from Royals Review caught my eye last night. And the question was in the headline, and generally, the rule is if there's a question in the headline, the answer is no. But I do think there's something a little bit about this. Is this, well, it's really more of a statement. It is time for the Royals to call in some reinforcements. You can also ask, is it time for the Royals to call in some reinforcements? And essentially, hey, Royals are 19-13. The vibes, for the most part, are good. You've got one superstar at the plate. Well, really two, if you think Salvador Perez is a superstar. He is certainly locally. And Vinny Pasquantino has been hitting a lot better as of late. Your pitching, starting-wise, has been good. The bullpen recently has been more good than bad. But as we talked about yesterday, and Dan, you pointed out some of the specifics, some of the other guys in the starting lineup have not been hitting all that well. That includes MJ Melendez and Nelson Velasquez. In their last 47 combined at-bats, 2 hits.
That's tough.
That is rough. One of them is 1 for his last 22. One is 1 for his last 25. They have also walked a combined 3 times. If you are curious if batting average is a stat that matters to you, that is a .043 average over their last 47 combined at-bats. Not especially good. Hunter Renfroe, we went over yesterday. He has been awful at the plate. Kyle Isbell, we've got the tape. We've seen those movies. We know what Kyle Isbell is offensively at this point. That's a guy who hits 9th, and that's pretty, and has a good glove. That's Kyle Isbell. Very much a Dayton Moore kind of player. So the point posited by this blog post over at Royals Review, Royal Treatment wrote it, so not anyone who put their real name on the post, but essentially is there are enough guys, and specifically 2 of them, who are hitting pretty well in Omaha right now that would lead you to believe maybe they should get a call up and should get some at-bats instead of Hunter Renfroe, who has been terrible, or guys who right now are mired in the worst combined slumps of their careers right now. I think it really comes down to sort of a philosophical question about what this year is. Do you want to push to contend for a playoff spot this year? Or are you more of the mind that this is not a full developmental year like a season ago, but maybe you're still not all the way in on going all in to make the postseason this year? That maybe you're willing to say, you know what? I know MJ Melendez has not been good recently, but we're going to give him every single at-bat still because we want him to work through it. I know Nelson Velasquez has stunk recently at the plate, but we want to give him every single plate appearance to try to work through those things. Are you more willing to do that, or do you feel like, hey, Drew Waters is hitting the ball really well at AAA. Let's give him some run. Let's see what he can do. Nick Lofton, since being sent down, he's been hitting pretty well down at AAA. Post also mentions Logan Porter, but that would be a lot of catchers on one roster. Probably don't need to do that right now. Where do you stand? Again, I think this is more philosophical than anything. Just what do you want the Royals to be? What do you want them to accomplish this year?
Well, I don't think that it is too early, if you're the Royals, to look at what you've already accomplished this season and say, all right, if our mindset was to evaluate, let's pivot to our mindset is to contend. Let's go ahead and pivot. Let's go ahead and make this year about winning and not just about, well, let's see what these young guys have and let's see, what they'll do with a full season's worth of at-bats or whatever the case might be. I think it's totally within reason if you're the Royals to say, hey, we have started this well. We've got this run differential. So these 32 games are not a fluke. We got 130 left. Let's maximize them. I think that's a totally reasonable thing for the Royals to decide to do. And when you do that, then you do have less patience for the young player in a slump or the veteran player who's dragging your lineup down if you've got a young guy beating down the door of the major leagues. Before I go any further in the conversation, I want to take Kyle Isbell out of it because defensively, he's playing well enough to carry the bat, in my opinion.
No, that's totally fair.
And he swung the bat better on the Toronto trip. I'll give him some credit for that. Like, obviously, he's got a ways to go to get to average as an offensive player, but I think his glove is good enough. He's been worth close to a win, according to Baseball Reference, with his performance so far, and that's even with a .218 batting average and a sub-7 OPS. I'm trying to find where he ranks on the team. He's the fourth most valuable member of the team right now, behind Lugo, Perez, and Bobby Witt Jr. So the glove is going to carry the bat there. As long as he's not hitting like a $120, I think you live with whatever he gives you offensively. Whatever he gives you out of the 9-hole is a bonus.
No, totally fair.
But with Melendez and Velasquez, I'll tell you, I have a longer leash on Melendez because I've seen him be successful at the big league level over a long haul, and I've seen him make adjustments as the season goes on, and he's been really unlucky in terms of his batting average on balls in play. His strikeout rate hasn't gone crazy or through the roof of anything like that. I am to a point where I need Nelson Velasquez to make an adjustment or to make that adjustment down at AAA Omaha. I think that I don't know if he's still batting 000s against anything that spins, but if you watch him, it kind of looks like he probably is. Like, he is a fastball crusher, and eventually the league figures out, hey, we just don't have to throw you one, especially now, especially 2024. Guys would prefer to throw breaking balls a lot of the time, more often than their fastballs. So Nelson Velasquez isn't seeing any hard stuff, and he's not doing any damage. Then he needs to go down to the minor leagues and make that adjustment. And Hunter Renfroe's a guy that, again, you brought him in because you were hoping to give you some power and some defense. He's got a bit of a longer leash because he's a veteran, and I don't think he's got minor league options. But I do think that it is fair to pivot and maybe make quicker decisions on guys who are underperforming than you would have otherwise. The thing that buys you time is this 19-13 start. You didn't go into this season thinking we are absolutely a contender, but now we're 13-19, and we gotta upend some furniture here and fix this thing before it becomes too late, before we dig ourselves too deep a hole. They're here with nothing from Hunter Renfroe, with Nelson Velasquez not hitting a lick in the last month, with MJ struggling, with their leadoff hitter, Michael Garcia, struggling for the better part of this season. That has bought them some time and some leeway to let some of these guys get right.
Yeah.
It's not an emergency yet, but I do think that the broader question that you ask here is, should the Royals shift their focus and shift their philosophy? If they hadn't already done it, I think the first 32 games give them the leeway to do that.
No, I think that's totally fair. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with the point being brought up here. I totally understand where they're coming from. But again, that's why I think this is more of a question of projection and what do you want this team to be. And you're right. I mean, the fact that you are way ahead of where you thought you would be in all likelihood gives you a little bit of grace. I mean, if you could have a 6-game losing streak, which normally you'd feel kind of sunk at this point in the year. Like, damn, we've fallen way off. You're still right at 500, which is probably near the top end of where everyone expected you to be when the season comes to a close. You've got room for grace, and it helps that you've got pitchers who can pick you up. You've got a bullpen who, again, has been more good than bad as of late. You've got a starting rotation that has been awesome for the most part this season. So you can take a few more of those risks. I am more interested in seeing more Nick Lofton at the major league level than I am seeing more Drew Waters, to be honest with you. Like, we've seen Drew Waters at the major league level, and I understand why he was a fairly high draft pick a few years ago by the Braves, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I understand the appeal in theory. I don't need two Kyle Isbells. That's sort of who he's been at the major league level before.
See, you say two Kyle Isbells. I'm giving you like younger switch hitting Hunter Renfroe.
For Waters?
For Waters. Like, I think that's what he is probably going to give you in a best case scenario. And I don't mean like Hunter Renfroe right now. I mean, generally like what Renfroe has been over the course of his career. Like, the strikeouts are too much for Waters to ever be a really good major league hitter. I think we can say we've got enough evidence. He's 25 years old. He's going to strike out 30% of the time in the major leagues. That's going to keep you from being a really good contributor. Now, he's got some pop. He can hit the ball a long way. I mean, he hit 8 home runs in last season, and he's slugging .532 in his first 92 plate appearances with Omaha. So there's some pop there, and there's some speed there, and it's a good glove, and it's a good arm. And you could play him in right field right now and probably get exactly what you've gotten from Hunter Renfroe.
I worry that he just has a quad A bat. That's just...
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the concern.
Too.
Like, that's what I'm saying too. Is like, but I think that this stage of Hunter Renfroe's career might be that too.
Yeah. No, that fair enough. Fair enough. And if the Royals determine, and I'm going to give Matt Quattrero and I'm going to give JJ Piccolo the benefit of the doubt here, because I think so far this season they have earned it. If they believe that the best option here is, you know what, let's get Drew Waters up here. We can get him a few days worth of at bats at the major league level. Let's see if he, having not played in the major so far this year, let's see if he's made enough adjustments, because a lot of guys on this team have made adjustments that have helped them so far this season. Maybe he is going to do what we hoped he would be able to do, and he can give us, an equal or better glove and a little bit more offensively than Hunter Renfroe. And if he can do that, you're a better team. You're a better team, right? If he hits 200 and gives you a good glove, you're getting more than you're getting out of Hunter Renfroe right now.
I wouldn't be opposed, honestly, to a call-up of Waters and send down Velasquez and give him an opportunity to get some at-bats and some confidence back at Omaha. And in doing that, you bring Waters up. You can play him against lefties or righties because he switch hits.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the defensive value that he brings. And it gives you a chance. Like, at this stage, I'm wondering if Hunter Renfroe is best served as just being a short side platoon guy and playing against all the left-handed starting pitchers that you see.
Could be.
Like, that might be the best use of him at this point. Like, that would be, like, if they were going to make a move. Like, if I'm in Matt Quatrero's shoes right now and I'm sitting and trying to figure out, all right, what move do we need to make? Well, like, how can I shake some things up? How can I deepen up the lineup a little bit? Well, let's do that. Let's get Waters up and Velasquez down, see if we can get Nelly's spirits back up, mash AAA pitching for a couple of weeks, and give Drew Waters an opportunity to come up. And it's a gain on defense, be a better defensive player. And right now, probably be a wash offensively for the time being, with the possibility for more. Because again, I think Waters might be who he is, but there's a chance he's not. He's 25, could be a late bloomer. That would be, again, I don't think the Royals have to make a move. I don't think they should feel pressed to juggle anything. But it has been frustrating to see some of these veteran guys come in and struggle. Christopher points out in the YouTube chat that Hampson and Renfroe, Garrett Hampson, we haven't talked about yet, but hasn't really contributed anything thus far to the Royals. Those were curious moves from the beginning. I saw the vision. Like, they needed to raise the floor of their roster. I said that so many times this offseason. They need to raise the floor. They had so many guys who were just non-contributors last year coming off their bench. They had to bring in guys who could contribute. So you're not rushing a guy up like Drew Waters and saying, hey, you're not going to play every day. It's not good for your development, but we need you to be on the 26-man roster. Adding Hunter Renfroe gave you the opportunity for a little roster flexibility. Same goes with Garrett Hampson. They're both right-handed. Hampson can play a bunch of different positions. Like, in theory, this made sense. Neither of them are hitting yet. That has been disappointing, certainly. But because they're veteran players, you maybe give them a little bit more leash. And a 19-13 start tends to buy some leash.
You almost have to wonder if the Royals pitching hasn't been as good as it's been when it comes to starting pitching. I would say they've had a really good start to the season starting pitching wise.
Mm-hmm.
What would their record be with their batting average? I'm just like looking at their offensive numbers.
Well, they're fifth in the league in runs scored.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If it wasn't for the two guys really being Salvador Perez and Bobby Witt Jr. are your heavy hitters there, right? Where would they be? And I guess Miguel Garcia.
Well, you take everybody's two best hitters out of the lineup. It's not going to look as good, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think I see the point you're trying to make. Like, that they have been fortunate to have pitched as well as they have,
and have really good starts from Salvi, from Bobby Witt Jr., Garcia in there as well from time to time.
The guys that you would hope would carry the offense are carrying the offense.
But what happens if they get injured?
Well,
yeah. What happens if anyone gets injured?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, it would suck, but I think that's just.
I think though, to the point I think you're trying to make, Spencer, that they've had the bottom half of the lineup really ebb more than flow this season, and they're still fifth in the American League in runs scored. Like, that to me is a good sign. Like, if they get this thing rolling, it could really be an above average offense. But what it is right now is good enough to be in the mix in the American League Central. They'd be in a playoff spot if the season ended before today's action. That gives you time to get some guys right, to get a little bit more time to get some guys. And hopefully it takes the pressure off of some of those guys who are off to slow starts. Like, hey, look, I'm once I start contributing, look out, because we're still winning games with me hitting one for my last, whatever it is that Velasquez is.
We've got to get to a timeout. Some change my mind. Oh, we already did change my mind. Maybe one of these days I'll actually learn our Friday schedule. On Second Thought is coming up next. Then we'll talk to Matt Derrick here on 580 Sports Talk. Real quick before we get to Matt Derrick, it's on second thought time. Any bad takes this week from the crew?
My bad take was that my beloved Colorado Avalanche were not going to advance out of the first round of the NHL playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs. And they did really easily, in fact. So, boy, is my face red.
Spencer?
My on second thought goes back to last Friday where I thought the Capitals would turn it around and maybe they'd still be playing right now.
Yeah.
Didn't happen.
No, that was tough. I probably at some point in my life was like, it would be pretty cool to be a coach. No, being a coach sucks. It is an awful job. And a great example of this, why are you an NBA coach? If you're not one of the three best coaches in the sport, what's the point? Darvin Ham got fired today. Is Darvin Ham good? No, probably not. You know what else isn't good? The Lakers roster. It sucks.
Yeah.
Their third best player is Rui Hachimura.
Nah, even worse. It's Austin Reeves.
Rui.
Like, if those are your third and fourth best players, they're lucky they aren't a G League. That team sucks.
Austin Reeves was Oklahoma's best player in college. You know what they got Oklahoma? Not an NCAA tournament berth.
And you know what? I was right. I said it when he was at Wichita State. I said it when he was at Oklahoma. Jake said, no, he's a good player. No, he is not. He's a bum. He's a bum.
He's a grifter. One of the more shameless grifters in the NBA. Looking for contact, looking for a whistle, which of course he gets because he's a Laker, and the Lakers get more whistles than anybody. Nah, man, Austin Reeves has a singularly unpleasant game, and I wish him ill.
He's a bum.
I wish the Lakers ill on general principle, but I really wish Austin Reeves ill.
Yeah, so anytime in my entire life I've said, what would be cool being a coach? I was wrong. It seems like a terrible job. Coming up next, we have our Chiefs Insider with Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com. Let's go to Kansas City, where we chat with our good pal Matt Derrick, who covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. He is our Chiefs insider, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Matt, are you a Kentucky Derby guy?
I mean, not hardcore seriously, but I will watch it. I mean, I have watched it for extended periods of time, and if I'm anywhere near a TV when it's happening, I mean, that's the fastest 2 minutes in sports, so you got to watch that.
Have you ever been to like live in-person horse racing?
I have not, and I would love to because I guess, well, I think I sort of was. I guess I wasn't really paying attention because it was at the Super Bowl in 2020, so Super Bowl 54 down in Florida, and I was at I guess casino / racetrack, and I think had maybe steeplechase that day.
Oh.
So it was kind of intriguing and entertaining and everything, but I was too busy playing poker to pay too much attention to it. So
I am a big fan of the ponies and would love to someday get to the Derby, or at least get back to watching some horse race. We don't have any in Kansas. You have to take a long drive to go find it, and it is very depressing. If you ever get a chance, though, Matt, highly recommend it. It's a great time.
I would like to. I mean, I grew up in the Ozarks, so not very far from Oaklawn, so always, was familiar with that and the results and everything. And I always wanted to get out to the Woodlands here when that was here around, but never really got a chance to. So I would love to. I think it's amazing. And I know, hey, you and Brett Veach, you are both men of the Derby. That guy loves his horse racing.
Hey, that dude gets it right far more often than he gets it wrong in life. So I'm being compared to Brett Veach. I will absolutely take that. We've got plenty on the draft to get to, Matt, but I did want to bring up something we talked about on yesterday's show. James Palmer, who used to work for NFL Network, he was on a podcast with former NFL receiver Steve Smith, and he said that the Chiefs, according to his sources, are preparing for maybe a half a season or more suspension for Rashee Rice, which to us on this program, we thought, whoa, that would be a lot. And I know this is obviously an extreme situation and a very bad situation for Rice, but that would be a really long personal conduct violation suspension. What are you hearing in terms of, right now with everything that's come out in the last couple of weeks, what the length of a suspension could be for the Chiefs' number one receiver?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, that's the first time I had heard that when James said that thought it would be that long. And I mean, I can honestly see, the Chiefs just being devil's advocate and planning on the absolute worst alternative, which would probably, I think, be 8 games or more. It would be hard for me to really see with NFL precedent that there would be anything much longer than that. And honestly, 6 games looks like the most likely outcome. It could be could be less, it could be more. I mean, you never know with the NFL. I mean, Roger Goodell and his punishment has been arbitrary sometimes in the past. But unless, that they really feel like this is something on which that they're trying to send a message and want to make Rashee the kind of poster child for kind of behavior that they don't want to see in the NFL anymore and want these guys to knock it off, then I could see a longer suspension. But, in keeping with what they've done in the past, 6 is pretty expected from this. And that's what I've generally been hearing. I mean, obviously, we've even seen reports just saying it'll be 2 games or more, and I think that's the safest. There's always things that could come out to change it, and that's the one thing we just don't know. So the Chiefs are smart, at least in planning for this suspension to be early and long. But honestly, I mean, most people don't expect this suspension to be handed out in 2024. Maybe the Chiefs have a little bit more insight into when the legal process is going to finish. If Rashee has a plea bargain or anything of that accelerates this, then obviously the suspension could come this year. But a lot of people I've talked to have all expected it to probably be in 2025 just because it's going to take that long before this case resolves itself.
Even if it is a shorter suspension for Rice, and especially if it is a longer suspension, would you add another veteran receiver to this group? We talked about this earlier today, and while I can understand that the room is in a better place now than it was a year ago, especially after drafting Xavier Worthy, I still think that, if you could have Kadarius Toney as wide receiver 4, for example, fine, but wouldn't it be even better if he could be wide receiver 5, or that Justin Watson could be wide receiver 5, and you could add, just a known quantity as a veteran? Would you explore a move like that?
Yeah, potentially. And, and I've been going over this, actually getting ready for a preseason look at the Chiefs and their receiver group and everything. And, one is obviously, hey, you're always going to overvalue your own players a little bit more than maybe some guys that are out there available. So, because I can see the Chiefs saying to themselves, wait a minute, hey, they still believe in Kadarius Toney. They still believe there's a chance that Rashee Rice is going to develop. They got a guy like Anthony Miller, who, while he hasn't done anything the last couple of seasons, was actually a pretty productive receiver for Matt Nagy in Chicago in this exact same offense. So, maybe they feel like that's a better hit than they had last year on some of the bets that they made with some receivers. They brought in some veterans. Nico Remigio was really impressive last year. Maybe they feel like he's ready, if he's healthy this year, can compete for a job that can become a reliable end of the bench. I think that's a little bit of it, is that they do feel like, hey, wait a minute, you know what? Even if some guys don't pan out or some injuries, they feel like that they still have NFL depth. Now, do they have top 3 or 4 receiver NFL depth? I'm not sold about that either. To me, a Tyler Boyd, somebody of that nature, I think would be worth kicking the tires and taking a look at the right price.
Our guest joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline is Matt Derrick, our Chiefs insider. Matt writes at ChiefsDigest.com. You can check out his work there. You can find him on Twitter at Matt Derrick. You can hear him every Friday at this time here on 580 Sports Talk. Matt, this is the first time we've gotten to talk to you since the NFL draft came to an end. So we've seen the day 2 and day 3 selections now for the Kansas City Chiefs. Obviously, you make a lot of the day 1 and 2 picks, the first 2 rounders, and Xavier Worthy and Kingsley Suamataia. But of the day 3 selections for the Chiefs, which ones do you see having the most immediate impact?
Yeah, I think there's a couple that really could. And Jared Wiley obviously is chief among them. Just with his size, I think he is an easier substitution for Travis Kelce than either Noah Gray or Irv Smith. Those are both smaller tight ends that you're hoping to get some mismatches because maybe they're a little bit faster. But I think we've seen with Noah that, even though I think he has a role on a good team and has had a role on a good team, he's not necessarily a swap out for Travis Kelce. You need somebody, I think, with a bigger size, bigger frame, bigger catch radius, all of those things. And that's what Wiley has. So I feel like that with him, even if he's not a Travis Kelce clone, let's get it real. Nobody is. But is he a player that you could say, wait a minute, Travis needs a breather. Wiley can handle this. He's a better fit. Yeah, I absolutely could. And is he a player that could, with the right coaching and development, develop into a better than average tight end? Absolutely. So pretty to see about him. Jaden Hicks is just absolutely a fantastic value where the Chiefs got him in the 4th round. This is a guy who is, universally considered one of the top 2 safeties in this year's draft. And so to get him in the 4th round, this is a guy that you absolutely could see, being one of your top 3 safeties next year if you're not able to keep Justin Reed. So, for both this year and next year, he'd be the 4th safety this year, but I also think he could end up being one of your best special teams players in 2024. And and you go on down the list. Norzad, I think, is an absolute perfect fit for what they need, which is, a Nick Allegretti type. He might be, more Nick Allegretti right now than Allegretti was coming out of the draft. Can play multiple interior positions and potentially the starter next year. They might need him. So I think that's a really good pick. Kamal Hadden, though, is, of those really late round guys, is the one that just impresses me the most, especially just the more I watch him. Health and availability was his biggest challenge, but when he played, he was productive. Turnovers, getting his hand on passes. Once again, I think he only played 23 college games because he did have some injuries, but I think he had 18 times that he got his hands on the ball, and that's the kind of production that the Chiefs love in their corners. And then you just look at his measurables. He's almost size and a lot of his skills are as like an exact carbon copy of L'Jarius Sneed. The only thing at his pro day that he really didn't match up well with Sneed would have been his 40 time. But he only recently started running again after that shoulder injury. So, I feel like, hey, if full strength and fully recovered from that shoulder and given some time to prep, probably runs better than a 4.57. So I think that's for especially what the Chiefs want, which is they like corners that plug and play into their system. It's not necessarily about getting guys that are just outstanding corners like a Trent McDuffie is and just dropping them in. They really like to get, system corners. And Hayden looks absolutely like one of those guys.
I asked you this question a couple of weeks before the draft. I want to revisit it now that the Chiefs have used a 2nd round draft selection on a left tackle, Kingsley Suamataia from BYU. is the starting left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs for week 1 of 2024 currently on the roster?
I think it is. I think it would be very difficult to lure a veteran left tackle into this team right now. I mean, if I'm Donovan Smith, and the last time we spoke to Donovan Smith, I mean, his premier and primary purpose was playing. He didn't want to be a backup. And I think a lot of veterans would be in that same spot. So right now, if you asked one of them to come in here, I'd be really surprised if one of them did it, because they see there's two guys that this team has ready to compete. Brett Veach has said as much. They're probably going to wait before they do anything, maybe until training camp, to see how these two guys look. And if one or both of them, with him, with Suamadia and Wanye Morris, that one of them will win that job. Hey, is it possible that you get to August 5th and now you're the Chiefs and you feel like maybe both these kids are struggling and that Donovan Smith is still available? Maybe you revisit that. But I think 90% chance and probability in my case, I think the starting left tackle's on this roster.
We're joined by Matt Derrick of ChiefsDigest.com on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. And Matt, I was talking about this earlier in one of our segments, Changed My Mind. Luis Rees-Zammit was not given the international player exemption for the roster spot. It was the left tackle Godric. In my mind, that means the Chiefs have really big expectations for him, even though he's never really stepped foot on a American football field and played with an American football. What is your take on that?
I think it's easy to see into that, and I think there's a reasonable case for that. But at the same time, I could probably is a little bit more contractual. It wasn't entirely clear to me, but it appeared that maybe the Chiefs, maybe even just given some verbal promise to Luis Rees-Zammit that they wouldn't make him the international player, that they would keep that off of him. It's really not a big deal. I mean, an international pathway player designation can still make the 53-player roster. It just gives the player that has a little bit more protection. And if they are, pathway player during the season, it does kind of inhibit them from a little bit from being able to sign with another team and everything like that, and it protects them. So it could have been something of that nature. But a lot of what I've heard with Luis Rees-Zammit is just, let's see. There's a lot to like. They've been really impressed. Mahomes was impressed with his work ethic and what he did down in Texas when they saw him, maybe better than average ball skills, seemed to really be taken to things. But, the answer I get when, asking about, if he can be a contributor this year is, who knows? They really don't know if he can play football. They don't know what skills that he's got is going to translate and how quickly they will. So I think there's an entire chance that he makes the 53. How much he plays, we'll see for sure. But I don't know. I can't really get a handle on this yet. And I think a big part of it is that they just want to get him on the field and see how all that translates. They can envision how it translates, but I think that until they see it for sure, they're just not sure what he's going to do on a football field.
Matt, what was your biggest surprise from what the Chiefs did in the draft this past week? Whether someone they did pick, a position they didn't pick, what was the biggest surprise to you?
I was a little surprised that they didn't go for a running back at some point in the draft, because, if you're going to get a running back with some speed, you pretty much have to draft them. I mean, you look at the guys that the Chiefs brought in as some undrafted free agent prospects, not a lot of speed there. I mean, there's some bigger guys and some strong players, but nobody with, really, to me, breakaway speed that you would say that this team needs. And that's what I think they're really kind of lacking. I mean, Kareem Hunt, even though it wasn't necessarily the fastest guy, he had breakaway speed. We haven't really seen that from Isaiah Pacheco, but Damian Williams had breakaway speed. So, I think that's the one element, especially if they're talking about wanting to try and replicate the 2018 and the 2019 offense that could just go up and down the field on you. You need a speed running back. And I'm just not sure that they still have that piece yet. I mean, maybe Luis Rees-Zammit is it. Maybe we're underrating that. Maybe he can be the guy out of the backfield that really does some things. But I still think they're missing that piece. I thought they might go running back late, even if there just wasn't a ton of speed out there left. But there were some guys I thought even the 5th and 6th rounds that I think would have been good fits for the team.
Who's your favorite undrafted free agent?
I think Fabian Levitt's the one with me with a bullet. Talked to a lot of people who thought that this, kid should have been probably a 4th or a 5th round draft pick. So I feel like he's almost an 8th-round draft pick. I mean, he's one that I think especially stands out. There's some other interesting names there too, but I mean, if I'm thinking of guys that I think have the best chance to make this team, I think Levin's it.
Matt Derrick covers the Kansas City Chiefs for ChiefsDigest.com. He joins us every Friday at this time for our Chiefs Insider on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Make sure you're checking out ChiefsDigest.com for all of Matt's great coverage of the Chiefs, and, of course, also checking out the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel as well. Matt, I wanted to make sure I give you a shout-out here. You and Nick Jacobs, 41's The Mic, the podcast you guys have done, awesome stuff. And anyone who wants even more insight on the Chiefs, I recommend you go check it out. I thought your draft preview stuff was awesome. So I wanted to make sure to give you guys a shout out because that is a killer podcast you guys have been doing.
Well, I appreciate it. Nick absolutely knows his stuff. So doing the show with him has been a lot of fun and educational for me too. So I appreciate it. I hope people enjoy it.
Yes, it is fantastic. And again, cannot recommend it enough. You can go find it over at the Chiefs Digest YouTube channel. Easy way to find it. Matt, we appreciate the time as always, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you guys. Take care, my friends.
That's Matt Derrick from ChiefsDigest.com, the absolute best when it comes to coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs. That does it for the 3 o'clock hour of the show. We're with you until 6 o'clock today. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of the program, we'll get to not just the Chiefs and what other needs do they need to address. What about the rest of the contenders in the AFC? How close are they to the Chiefs? What do they need to close the gap with the Chiefs? We'll find our weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You, and Tim Fitzgerald will join us for a 2 days late edition of the Wildcat Wrap-up. We'll get to your texts on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, and your comments on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube stream as well. It's all coming up in the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. It's the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. Brendan Dworzynski, Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis, all here with you in studio today. Thanks so much for hanging out with us before we get to the weekend. Hope you have a fun one planned, or you just do nothing. That would also be a great weekend. Just don't do a single thing. I've
had a few of those.
Yeah.
And those are really good.
I'm excited that it's going to rain again tomorrow. I'm so glad my lawn is going to be even more wet and untouchable. So happy about that. Just kidding. I'm not. I'm so mad. It's so wet. I can't mow it. And so long, it just gums up. It's awful.
Yeah, try to alternate it best as I can. Get the front yard one week, get the backyard the next.
That's smart.
Get some more downed branches. We got big trees, so that's probably what I'll try and knock out Saturday morning. Is get some sticks picked up and get the lawn mowed. Please, nobody tell my wife that I made this vow live on the radio. She's gonna hold me to it tomorrow morning.
When I was a like teenager, when I was mowing the family lawn, like I've talked about recently on the show, my dad used to have me do it like every 5 days.
Oh yeah, I used to have to do it every third.
Yeah, because my neighbor, shout out to my childhood neighbor, Ted, he had the best lawn in the neighborhood, so my dad had to at least have ours be like number 2 behind his.
Oh, I got competitive.
I mean, not competitive, but it had to at least look good because his looked great.
I didn't know you lived next to Ted Leonsis.
No, not that guy.
That's where the hatred came from. Yeah, well, my house currently, we don't have trees to deal with and sticks. We have no trees, period. We have no trees.
Are you planning on planting any?
Actually, yes. My wife has talked about wanting to plant trees. But everything is always in sunlight. So it's either been raining and getting wet and untouchable, or it is sunny and everything grows crazy fast.
Yeah, we have the opposite problem. We got a lot of trees. Which shade is nice. I like having the shade. Has the house in shade. The problem that it creates makes it hard for grass to grow in certain spots, especially because with trees, what we also have are squirrels. Lots and lots of squirrels. And
terrible animals.
Like, they don't get in the house or anything, but like they're just always around and they eat grass seed when I've tried to plant grass or grow grass. So that's trouble. And then when you have like rain like we've had the last couple of weeks and get some downed branches and like we had a whole ass limb sitting in the sidewalk a couple weeks ago that we had to chainsaw up just to move.
Wow.
Jeez. So and homeowner problems.
Get to pull out the chainsaw though.
Yeah, it was my father-in-law that did it. I'm not going to front. My father-in-law brought the chainsaw out.
It's cool to just be around a chainsaw, though.
Yeah. Chainsaws are very cool. I admired the power from afar.
So were you just like on the couch while he was doing it?
It was raining. It was raining.
Your father-in-law go out in the rain?
He decided that was when he wanted to do it. Well, That man is 72 years old. You don't tell him what to do. He gets his headset, like, this is what I'm going to go do. He goes and does it.
Well, sure, but you don't have to let the old guy go out in the rain.
Well, that's what I told him. I said, hey, like, do you want to, like, wait until it's done raining? He goes, no. And he come back in 5 minutes later and it's done. Okay.
I mean, hey, if it's his prerogative.
Right.
I get it. My dad is like that. Like, hey, maybe you should take a breath. Like, take a break. No. I'm gonna do it. Okay, well, best of luck.
Yeah, you get to a certain age where you just like make the decision.
It's
time to do it.
There's also the flip side of that, though. My dad has told me stories about, because I don't remember. I lived in the same town growing up the whole time I lived there, but we moved when I was, I think, 2 or 3 years old to the house my parents still live in. The old neighbors, Grant was the elderly gentleman who lived there. During the summertime, he'd go out, mow his lawn like any homeowner, but sometimes he would just stop. Like, he would stop right in the middle of a strip of lawn and would just leave his lawnmower and go inside and take a nap or have a drink or whatever. And my dad asked him, like, hey, Grant, why do you just stop? Like, why are you leaving your lawnmower out? And he goes, well, I'm not worried about it getting stolen, and I'm old and tired, and I'm not gonna push it. If it takes me an extra couple hours, that's fine, but I'm not gonna push it. And now my dad, I believe, does the same thing. He's just, I'm pooped. I'm going to go have a popsicle and a drink, and I'll finish later, which I get. I respect it so much. I am much more like, if I'm doing it, I have to get it done. I don't like to leave it because then I have to think about it, and then I dread having more to do.
So if you leave it, like, how long are you leaving it?
I guess it depends on the day or the heat, maybe. I don't know.
If you're leaving it till the next day, technically you need to go back over what you've already done.
Well, yeah, that's true too.
To make it an even cut.
I am mostly just excited for like August when it'll be beastly hot out, but it won't grow the same because it won't rain as much. That's what I'm excited for. When I was a kid, I had to, like I said, mow every 3 days. We had a corner lot in the sun, and it just was awful. From May until like early July, mowed it 90 times. Just brutal. But nowadays, I have an even bigger lawn, and it is also wet. And now I can't say, hey, son, go do it, because I'm not at that stage of life right now.
No, you're not.
And my wife has done a lot of the work inside. I have pretty much said, no, I got the outside. Like landscape, lawn, I got it. Well, now I'm screwed.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
I've backed myself into a corner. We'd love to hear from you. Hit us up on the Top City Metal Supply text line, 785-272-9429, or on the 580 Sports Talk YouTube channel as well. Mark on YouTube is with me. Once I start something, I need to finish it. I don't like leaving projects because then it sits there and I can't do it.
Yeah. No, my wife's like that too. And I can be like that depending on the project. There are some projects I'm very happy to stop in the middle and worry about another day. Like it is too hot to continue to do this. Or
yeah, my problem is getting started. Like is legitimately just like getting it off the ground. Because once I get there, I'll get it done and I'll get it done well. But it's the actual getting there part of it.
I'll tell you what goes crazy though, when it does get to be real hot and humid and you got to mow the lawn on that Saturday morning, that cold beer afterwards. Yeah, or cold lemonade if you prefer.
Yeah,
but
no,
man, that to crib a phrase, a famous tweet from Twitter, man, when I'm done mowing the lawn on a humid Saturday or Sunday morning, that cold beer hit my hand like Mjolnir.
I can't wait for that time in my life when I own a home and I'm mowing the lawn.
Oh, no, you say that now.
And I get to open a cold beer afterwards.
You say that now. You can just skip to the good part of it and not have to worry about it when you're apartment dwelling. You'll miss those days when they're gone.
The first time I did it a few weeks back, like this is ours. My lawn. Oh, this is awesome. Then the second time I did it, it was, oh man, this blows. Eventually, I will come back around to it. The good outweighs the bad, absolutely. But the bad also not very fun. I do not love the bad parts of it. Wanted to get to a couple notes here from the NFL. One quick Chiefs note. The Chiefs have rescinded their tender to Cole Christensen, who had been bouncing around on the practice squad last year. So he will not be back with the Chiefs. What was your favorite Cole Christensen memory?
Remembering just now that he's on the team.
Yeah, he that's about all I got. He played at Army before he ended up being undrafted by the Chargers, was there for 2 years. He's been with the Chiefs for a couple of years now. But yeah, he signed his tender back on March 11th and has since had it rescinded, and he is no longer a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that means he has to go into the service now.
Kind of interesting how you can get it like if he signed it, but it's rescinded after he signed it.
Yeah, that's
if he didn't sign it, then like I could see that. Or
well,
if they were trying to negotiate and he wanted more money on the tender.
Yeah, maybe this reporting was shifty in the first place and he had been given the tender but didn't sign it. I don't know this.
I don't know that. Like it'd be weird if they rescinded something that you signed.
Well, I figure you probably can't do that.
You can cut somebody.
Yeah. So there's your one piece of Chiefs news for the day. Around the rest of the AFC, because we've talked the last few days about what do the Chiefs still need to do, some of the competition, etc. What about the rest of the AFC? We talked on Monday who had some of the best drafts and what were some of the picks you liked. I know you guys got to some of that last Friday regarding the first round. When you look up and down the rest of the top teams in the AFC, so we're talking about the Ravens, the Bengals, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Texans, I think you can throw into that group. What other major needs do those teams still need to fill this offseason into training camp, into the regular season? Frankly, I think an important question here is which of these teams either closed the gap. I'm not saying they're even with the Chiefs now. No one is. No one should be considered even with the Chiefs right now. But who did enough to maybe close the gap a little bit or to at least keep pace with how the Chiefs have built? Because I like the Chiefs draft class. I like what the Chiefs have done this offseason. It's mostly been retaining their own guys. But I like what the Chiefs have done. I liked the draft. Who has been there? Who has not allowed themselves to fall farther back? The Bills have fallen farther back.
That's what I was going to say as a candidate that fell.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I think as a franchise, they are kind of aware of that. And they're just saying, hey, this has become such a popular term in like football insider circles. This is the take their medicine year. This is the eat their vegetables year. They knew they had cap problems. They had old guys. Let's just move on. Let's try to draft the next wave. Josh Allen is going to be good enough. We'll still be in playoff contention, but let's get off of some of the old contracts, move forward. They have taken a clear step back. The rest of the conference, though, has anyone stood out to you as, yeah, they're still right there?
Maybe Baltimore. They got a starting tackle in Rosengarten from Washington in round 2. I think they probably had the fewest holes to fill. Like, over the course of 17 games, they were the best team in the AFC last year. Let's not forget that they were the best team in the AFC. They had home field advantage. They hosted the AFC Championship game. They lost that game.
I picked them to beat the Chiefs.
I also picked them to beat the Chiefs. Like, if there's any team that can feel like we're on level footing with the Kansas City Chiefs, it's the Baltimore Ravens. And I think they can still feel that way given what they've done. I know they've lost some pieces to their running game, but they've gained some pieces too. And they had a fine draft and addressed some holes. I still think they could stand to add some depth at offensive line, but that team killed everybody last year. Like, they had the best point differential in the NFL. They were awesome. And that gets diminished because they were not awesome when they had to be awesome, which was at home in the AFC Championship game. But that's the one team that I see and think, I don't think that they've gotten a lot worse. They have some weaknesses, but that's the one team that I don't believe that they're on level footing with the Chiefs, but I think they can convince themselves that they are.
Yeah.
The one worry I have for Baltimore is they are going to have a couple of different important spots where they will have to rely on rookies. And look, sometimes your rookies hit right away. The Chiefs rookie, we've talked about the 2022 class a lot this week. Karlaftis hit right away. Trent McDuffie hit right away. Sometimes you have a great class and guys are impact players. Geno Stone was great for them at safety last year. Can TJ Tampa be that guy who was one of the better safeties in this draft? But it was a terrible draft of safeties. It was not a good class. We know TJ Tampa, of course, from Iowa State. Nate Wiggins is likely going to start at one of their cornerback spots this year. Talented player. A lot of good defensive backs have come from Clemson. Nate Wiggins is tiny. He is really small. Will that adapt to the NFL right away? They're going to start a rookie at right tackle this year. And your tackles are always important. They are especially important when you've got a quarterback who can run, because as great as Lamar Jackson is at escaping pressure and getting away from tacklers, he also brings on more pressure because he's getting out to the edge fairly frequently. So if those guys hit, I'm right there with you. They're still number 2, and they deserve to because of what they accomplished a season ago. But I do think that is your big question. Running back-wise, I honestly think they're fine at running back, to be honest with you. Like, J.K. Dobbins, talented, always hurt. Gus Edwards was available. I think that was kind of the best thing about Gus Edwards is they run the ball a lot, and he just didn't get hurt. I don't know that he's a special talent by any means. Derrick Henry's better than both of those dudes, and I think he's got something left in the tank, and he's going to start at running back. Keaton Mitchell will be back probably early-ish in the season from that ACL injury. Justice Hill is no worse, I think, than Gus Edwards. And they got your guy, Spencer Rashin Ali from Marshall.
They posted pictures from rookie minicamp, and he was not practicing because he has his Achilles.
So his Achilles.
So I wonder how much that's going to put him a step back to things.
But I like that room. When all these guys get healthy, I like that room.
I think he could be a guy that could step in if he had to.
I think another team that is in a similar boat, and I mean, you've heard me talk about them a bunch. I think the Bengals are there. But again, like I've said since the start of free agency, I also believe this is the year for the Bengals.
I was just going to say getting their 3rd round receiver, getting Mims,
Mhm.
getting some guys that are quality backups in the 2nd and 5th round on the defense when you come to Chris Jenkins at defensive tackle.
And I love Chris Jenkins.
Josh
I
Newton
love
at
that
corner.
pick. I was a huge fan of that draft pick. I do think losing DJ Reader hurt them up front. It's not especially good that your number 2 wide receiver and your best pass rusher both said they want out this offseason and would like to be traded, which again is another reason why I think this is the year. And then they are going to have to go through what the Bills are going through. The problem is the Bengals are maybe the cheapest ownership group in the NFL. And the Bills are going to take their medicine this year, but I trust that the Bills and the Pagulas, for all the issues they have, like with stadium stuff and wanting public funding and all of that, they've been willing to spend on their team. Mike Brown does not spend on his team unless you're Joe Burrow. And they literally sold the name of the stadium that was named for his dad, the guy who founded the team, to be able to have the upfront cash to pay Joe Burrow.
Yep.
They are penny pinchers. They are cheap. You got 1 year to make a run. And I think they will. I think by drafting a guy who I really like in Chris Jenkins, even if he maybe needs to grow, a little bit into the NFL game, they still have Higgins for now. I like Jermaine Burton as a player. You mentioned him, Spencer, from Alabama. Apparently, right before the draft started, a lot of rumors came out that there were some red flags about, the old classic character concerns. I don't know if that's just he's a hothead or if he's got problems or what. I have no idea.
I don't know about any of that. I just know I watched a lot of Alabama football because they're always on TV and they win all their games. And I saw him ball out every single Saturday.
Yeah, he's stud. I think his talent's great. I don't know what the hell the reported red flags came from.
I don't know, but he says, I have moved on from the past. Apparently something about he hit a female.
Well, that's obviously very bad.
Moments after a game against Tennessee in 2022.
That's very bad. I do not know enough about that to say anything about it.
That would have been when they lost Tennessee 2022. They lost that game to Tennessee at Neyland Stadium. Maybe, there was a field storm
after the game. Yeah. Okay. That makes a little bit more sense. But anyway, the general point here, I think the Bengals are going to be a competitive team. The biggest issue they had was they got to have their quarterback. Burrow's got to be out there. If they've got Burrow out there, they're going to contend.
Yes.
If he's got a problem with his hand again, though, this year, because that was a freak injury, but I don't know what the long-term prognosis of it is. If he's got a problem, they are not going to contend. That's number one for them. And they've improved their offensive line, I think, by adding Trent Brown. They added a guy on the defensive line in Jenkins, who I really like through the draft. They got to have their quarterback, though. That's the number one thing.
If I gave you Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals, Bills, Dolphins, Texans, do I have the 6 best teams in the AFC in that list?
Oh, ooh.
Do I have 6 of the 7 best?
Yeah. I mean, you probably do have the 6. Because I think the Bills have their quarterback and they're well coached enough, and they've still got a couple of dudes.
That's the thing about the Bills is I know that they're retooling, and I don't expect them to be like a legitimate Super Bowl threat this year. But your floor is only but so low when you've got that guy at quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, they're probably in there. I mean, the other teams that would come out would be in the grouping. I mean,
there's only 3 I can think of that would be in the conversation for 7. And that's Cleveland.
Yeah.
Indianapolis. But you got to really believe in Anthony Richardson.
I don't hate putting them in the maybe category, though. I don't. But who would the other one be?
The Jets?
Not the Jags.
Not the Jags.
That team... They need to be good this year. I will say that. The Jags need to be good. Otherwise, they're going to have a whole lot of questions that they got to figure out about their head coach and their quarterback.
But we know that the Jets roster is a quarterback away. That we knew that. We knew that 2 years ago, and we know that coming out of this last season. Well, the quarterback's on the roster. He's a pain in the rear end, but he's on the roster.
He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. And how much does he have left in the tank coming off a torn Achilles? It's an open question, but if he can get back to something close to a previous level of performance, that's the quarterback away that they are from being, I think, a playoff team.
I mean, look, if we're talking hypotheticals here, He was apparently about ready to go in December, so he should be ready.
Now,
to go.
I don't believe that. Just for the record, I don't believe that.
What was
no, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah.
So we should see a great Aaron Rodgers.
To that point, because I agree with you. Like, if he was serious and he was ready to go, then yes, they should be a contender.
He should be a full participant in all the offseason activities.
No, for sure.
If he's not, then that's a red flag.
Yeah, no, totally get where you're coming from with that. I don't hate the idea of putting the Colts there. That's the other one to me that is at least interesting. And again, it comes down to, and I hate sometimes making it this simple, what is Anthony Richardson?
Yeah.
Coming off of an injury that he probably, and maybe I'm off here, I feel like if they had wanted to, they probably could have put him back into the roster at the end of the season, but they wanted to be careful with him, which is the right approach for a young quarterback, and especially one who plays a very physical style of football. And I know you were really high on him going into last year's draft, and I was impressed by what he did in a limited sample to start the season, other than the fact that he suffered 2 major injuries in like 5 weeks. If he's the guy, I like that team. They've got a legit number one, I think, in Michael Pittman. I like A.D. Mitchell out of the draft. They've got their deep threats in both Alec Pierce and Josh Downs. Their line should still be decent, although not as good as it had been in previous years. Their defense is kind of good. I kind of like their defense, especially up front. Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner is a really good interior. That's a really good pair in the middle of your defensive line. I think they have a wild card shot. I do not think they're better than the Texans, but I could see it. I could see an argument. But that's
you really got to believe in Richardson. Yeah, I just
that's what it comes down
with
to.
Jacksonville. I think they break the draft. Like, I like Brian Thomas. I think he'll help their offense, but I think the rest of their draft was a lot of reaches, and I just think they're kind of stuck in that 7, 8, 9 win stasis. Like, I don't think they're going to be a whole lot better or worse than that. They feel like a very average football team to me.
I don't know.
Other teams, I think ceilings have higher ceilings than Jacksonville.
Yeah, Jordan Jefferson, who they took in the 4th round, we had seen the defensive lineman out of LSU. We had seen him as a 6th rounder mocked to the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Mason Smith, middle of the 2nd round. I mean, talented, but also a major scary injury history.
I know that power rankings are a very silly exercise, especially when rosters aren't complete yet. But according to the Athletics post-NFL draft power rankings, they have the Jaguars 26th in the NFL.
Yuck.
Sandwiched right between the Raiders and the Giants.
And here's the other thing about them. When is Trevor Lawrence taking the next step?
Is there a next step for him to take, or is this just who he is? I mean, we're on year 5, right?
Yeah.
This might just be who he is.
And he's good, but good's not enough.
No, we were promised generational. That's why he was 1-1, and there was never a doubt he was going to be round 1, pick 1. We were promised generational.
Mm-hmm.
We were told this was a franchise-changing quarterback instead of just a guy who's good enough to start for you for a decade.
There is something to be said scouting quarterbacks in college for, like, Trevor Lawrence has the arm strength. He has athleticism. Who could jump over defensive backs. Justin Ross for a year.
Freshman Justin Ross was special.
He could have been a top 10 pick if it was just freshman Justin Ross. T. Higgins. Who they had someone else that I can't pull off the top of my head right now. Like, they just had go up and get it dudes. Yeah, you don't have all that in the NFL all the time. And I think that has been an issue for Trevor Lawrence.
That's why those Alabama quarterbacks have not maybe reached their level of expectations in the NFL.
Yeah. Whereas guys like a Caleb Williams, who in the 7 years that I have scouted as much as I have scouted draft quarterbacks, I think Caleb Williams is a better prospect than Trevor Lawrence, a guy who was billed as the best prospect since Andrew Luck. And Caleb made more plays for himself, I think, than Trevor Lawrence made for himself in college. And I think we have already seen that with Lawrence's NFL career. Coming up next, today's What Is Wrong With You? We'll pick a weekly winner. Then we'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald here on 580 Sports Talk. for a quick What Is Wrong With You before we get to the Wildcat Wrap-up. Our winner from yesterday, Dude Doesn't Look Enough Like a Lady. Was that a listener entry for the name, or was that you?
I came up with that one.
It's tremendous. A guy who was, he was wanted for stealing a boat and tried to hide by dressing up like a woman. It was a very bad disguise.
It was a terrible disguise. Didn't commit enough to it. The wig stunk. It was very easy to suss out that it was who they were looking for.
All right, Dan, what you got today?
All right, we are going to Florida, and we are meeting an HOA president who is the worst. Florida man taken to jail last month for allegedly approaching 3 kids with a gun for fishing at a subdivision where he is the HOA president. 56-year-old Kyle Tate of Palm Bay was arrested on felony charges of criminal mischief and grand theft. Palm Bay police officers responded to the Stillwater Lakes subdivision after 3 children reported that a man approached them with a gun, telling them to get off his property. Officers said the children were fishing on the south side of the subdivision's lake. That doesn't belong to Tate, but it does belong to the HOA, and Tate, again, is the president. Tate took the kids' fishing reels and rods, tackle boxes, and cast nets and threw them in the woods, maliciously damaging their fishing equipment. He then allegedly took one of the kids' phones, which could not be found. The kids' items and the missing phone were valued at approximately $3,700. The kids were ages 7, 10, and 15. The mother of the 7 and 15-year-olds says her kids have gone fishing there before without any issues. Tate was arrested and booked into the Brevard County Jail.
Good, and leave him there. Why are you pulling a gun on kids, man? They're just fishing.
Get off my property. Bro, it's a HOA property.
Come on.
Like, they're just kids fishing. They're obviously not doing any harm. Like, it'd be one thing if it was like they're chopping down trees or they're throwing rocks at like
a house,
or, that'd be one thing. You flex this is our property card. They're just fishing, man. Leave them alone. Pull a gun on a 7-year-old? What kind of psycho are you? The correct answer to that is psycho enough to be the president of an HOA.
Yeah, that's the truth. My story includes a 20-year-old man who is going to jail because he threw fried chicken at someone because he was hangry. You ever get hangry?
Oh, yeah.
I was hangry last night.
Might be a little hangry right now, if we're being real.
According to investigators, the 20-year-old man threw a piece of fried chicken at his sister during a domestic clash Sunday afternoon in Clearwater, the home of Kanye Medley. What a name.
Kanye with an H.
Kanye with an H, Medley. During a verbal altercation, he grabbed a bag of Church's chicken from his sister and threw pieces of chicken at her. One hit her in the back and left debris of food on her shoulders. What a phrasing. After being read his rights, Medley reportedly admitted to throwing the chicken, one piece of which hit her. The motive, he stated, quote, he did this because he had not eaten and did not want the piece of chicken the victim offered him, so he became upset.
Now, he didn't want any chicken, or he didn't want, she offered him a thigh, and he was like, no.
And he wanted the breast.
I wanted a leg.
Yeah, and that seems to be the issue. He was arrested for domestic battery.
Man.
He also was in jail earlier this year for biting and strangling his sister. They probably should not live together.
No, they should definitely go to therapy and try and alter that relationship to a point where you're not throwing. It was Church's chicken, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, chicken sounds good right now. I'm going to pick the HOA president to win today, and I think that wins the week.
I do, too. Like, you talk about a power trip.
Yeah. It's just kids fishing.
Pulled a gun on some kids just fishing out by a pond.
Pulled a gun on a 7-year-old.
We want kids to, go outside and be with nature and not look at their screens. And then when these 3 kids decide, all right, yeah, we'll do that. We'll put Fortnite down and we'll go fishing. Big brother taking little brother fishing. That's what they get, a gun pulled on them?
Just
awful. That wins the week.
Our new weekly winner in What Is Wrong With You. That leads us to a commercial break. And Tim Fitzgerald, he's coming up next on 580 Sports Talk. Joining us so kindly, since we didn't have a show on Wednesday, is Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com. In fact, he is the publisher of Go PowerCat. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Go check it out for the best coverage of K-State sports. Make sure you are subscribed to the Go PowerCat YouTube channel and following Fitz on Twitter as well at Life of Fitz. Fitz, we appreciate the time, my friend. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready for the weekend. I got big plans. It's going to be beautiful, I hope. And I'm done with my work for today, except for this. You're all that stands between me and just blissful enjoyment.
Well, we're going to put you to work, so you're going to have to earn
Okay.
this weekend, all right, Fitz?
Okay.
Real quick, before we get to K-State, horse racing, yay or nay for you? Ha, nay. I didn't even catch that.
It's mostly a nay, but I have to watch every race because it's yay for the wife.
Okay, well, there you go. That's
Spent some time in Kentucky as a child, so she's into horse racing.
that makes sense. So you're going to watch the Derby tomorrow then?
No. Well, I probably have to. I don't even know what time they run. We're leaving town, so oh God, I better not tell my wife about that.
Yeah,
They run at like 5, don't they?
6 o'clock, I believe.
Yep, we will be on the road to Wichita for a concert. So.
Who are you seeing?
Whiskey Myers.
Nice.
One of my favorite bands. I've never seen them in person. And Lucas Nelson, Willie's son, who's remarkable in his own way, is opening. So I'm very fired up.
Oh, that'll be a fun show. We'll have a fun time down in the Air Capital. Let's get to some K-State sports here, Fitz. Wanted to start with some football today. In fact, a lot of football to get to. Number one, and I know you had mentioned this could be in the pipeline over on the VIP side of Go PowerCat a couple of weeks ago. But Jake Clifton stepping away from the K-State football program, announcing on Twitter today that he is going to pursue missionary work for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a very noble venture for Jake Clifton. What do you know about how he came to this decision, and where does that leave the K-State linebacker room?
Well, I'm not sure how he came to the decision because he wasn't Mormon before he came to K-State. So I don't know when this happened and when he decided this was important, but I'm really happy for him. I just recorded my daily delivery for tomorrow on this topic with the very cliche headline, "Man on a Mission." So I'm not proud of it. I just like it. And,
hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah, exactly. First, I want to say if he's going to do this, it's the perfect time. It leaves him 2 years of eligibility to come back and play as, a grown man and, build his way up if he wants to make it in the NFL. You can't do it between college and NFL. You're going to ruin your chances. So now's the time. And it does leave the linebacker room at Kansas State a little bit thin because this was not only your starting middle linebacker, but a guy that could float to other positions and let Austin Romaine play the middle so he could fill in elsewhere. And so it's almost like losing a player and a half. And that explains exactly why Kansas State's looking for 2 linebackers in the portal. They've gotten one already in Alec Marinko out of New Mexico, who they think might be their starter at middle linebacker. And they'll try to get someone else for depth purposes, and we'll see how that pans out. But I'm happy for Jake, and, for a young person to know so definitively what they want to do is impressive, and I wish him the best of luck.
Yeah, he's a good dude. We got to talk to Jake before. I don't remember which game it was last season, but we got to have him on the show. Yeah. Real good dude, real good kid, and very happy that he knows what he wants to do with his life in that regard. You did mention, though, Fitz, Alec Marinko, who committed to K-State over Arizona earlier this week. What do you guys know about Alec Marinko and what he'll be able to offer to K-State?
He's been a little dinged up the last year and a half or so. When he's healthy, he's, by all reports, a very good linebacker. And K-State feels like he'll be healthy. Feels like everything will be mended up. He got injured, never properly healed. They think they're going to get him there. And they're hopeful that he will be the starting middle linebacker, at least, make it really competitive with Austin Romaine. And we'll see how that all works out. But sounds like a good get. I appreciate the young man knowing he wanted to play for the Wildcats. He just had to choose which one.
Our guest is Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com here on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits Hotline. Fitz joins us Wednesdays typically for the Wildcat Wrap-up here on the program, but gracious enough to join us on this Friday edition of the show. Again, you can find Fitz and his staff's outstanding work at GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can follow Fitz on Twitter at LifeOfFitz. Obviously, the weekend was an exciting one in the transfer portal for both football and basketball, Fitz. And I want to start with the commitment of Dylan Edwards, who had, of course, originally committed to Kansas State, the former Derby Panther, played last year at Colorado. He enters the program. Right now, I'm looking at Treshaun Ward's touches for Kansas State last year. He carried the ball 124 times and caught 17 passes as running back number 2, or really 1B behind DJ Giddens. Is that a reasonable expectation of a workload for Dylan Edwards as a sophomore in his first year at Kansas State?
Oh, I think he'll be on the field more than Treshaun was because of his ability to be a true receiver. The carries might be about right as long as DJ Giddens is healthy. That's about 10 a game. Maybe a little higher because Treshaun did miss a game or so. And so maybe it's going to be closer to 15, depending on, maybe Dylan's the hot hand for a game, which was the deal with Treshaun. But, everyone knows DJ's the starting running back. He's earned that. But he also can play in the slot receiver and give them a lot of speed. And I think now the coaches will, feel like they can do a 2-back set with these 2 guys. With Avery Johnson, that could be highly effective and really disturbing to defensive coordinators. So, and I also think he'll be in the mix at kickoff and punt return. And they just found themselves a really versatile player that expands the things they can do offensively and maybe in the return game.
Both on and off the field, how big a deal is it that K-State sets up for this coming season with a quarterback from Mays, Kansas, and running backs from Junction City, Kansas, and Derby, Kansas?
It's that's something K-State needs to highlight every chance they'll get, because those 3 guys are going to get a lot of publicity. It's national news that, he ended up with Avery, and everyone just kind of knows what a silent assassin DJ Giddens is. Kid hardly talks and goes out there and just runs past people. And I think it's really important that K-State emphasizes these are 3 Kansas kids. This is what the Kansas kids can do, and this is how the Kansas kids can thrive at Kansas State. Because we've seen this year some of the top players already committing to out-of-state schools, and maybe they need to learn from K-State's perspective from what Dylan Edwards did. He tried that and realized he needed to be home, and his best opportunities were at home. Because Kansas State values players from Kansas more than you'll find anywhere else.
Looking at what transpired this weekend in the basketball transfer portal, Baye Fall is a Kansas State Wildcat who spent his freshman season at Arkansas, didn't get a chance to play much, but certainly K-State needed a big and probably more than one out of the transfer portal. They get one in fall. Is this a player that Jerome Tang and his staff think will have an immediate impact, or is this more of a long-term developmental play?
I think it's a little bit more long-term. I know they intend on playing him. At 6'11", he's still learning to manage his body, really long, lean kid. I don't know if he could play the post in the Big 12, but I think maybe they're looking at him for a wing position and maybe some of the post. But what they're looking for now is those big guys, whether they're the 4 or the 5 on the court, they all have to be able to run. They want them to be able to get up and down the floor, much like David Gaston does. And having him back is huge. So they're still looking for a true center. They're still working on that. It's very competitive out there in the NIL space for those guys. So that's a big project. And they've got battled the other Arkansas player that's down to 3, including Kansas State, as a wing player, 6'5". And that's important that they get him. I think that's a really key piece if they want to get to where they want to go next year.
And I would think it's even more of a priority to get a veteran scoring guard like Battle with the announcement that Day Ames was going to be in the transfer portal. I have to imagine that was a really disappointing loss and maybe one that caught the coaching staff a little bit off guard.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And also sounds like, he was strongly advised to do it, which I don't think was in his best interest. I don't quite understand this one. He was going to play quite a bit for Kansas State, no matter who they brought in. He's kind of earned that. He gave them an experienced backup point guard. Now they'll probably turn to David Castillo, the true freshman, to be the backup behind Doug McDaniel. But think we all knew he was going to play, and someone got in his ear and said he wasn't going to play, and he needed to go somewhere else where he get more NIL money. Guys, I don't know where he's going to end up, but most of the Power 5 programs right now know having experienced guards is essential. And we've seen that play out across college basketball. One team tried to go young last year, and they were really talented, and Oklahoma State got its coach fired. So that's a lesson learned. You just can't be young and compete. He's got a little bit of experience that will help him. Hopefully he'll find a good place for him. I just hate to see him slip through the cracks and end up at a mid-major. He might play more, but I don't know if that's the level of basketball he wants to be at.
We're joined by Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com. And Tim, keeping on basketball here, what do you think of the kind of almost roster full turnover from last year or this past season to next season, and how it will bode well for Coach Tang and his staff?
Yeah, it's this one's got fans a little curious because the plan was to start getting homegrown experience, and your two freshman guards from last season both transferred out. You had a sophomore guard and Dorian Finister transfer out, and you lost some youth. That wasn't ideal, but I think it's just going to take Coach Tang a while to get his roots down and get that experience homegrown. So the veteran guards are people he recruited, but kids don't want to stick around for that. They don't want to pay the dues. They want immediate, playing time. They just want to step on the court and get it done. They were all players that shined at the AAU level, and they can't imagine not playing, 30 plus minutes a game. But that's not the process. You got to earn it unless you're truly an elite player.
Not to beat a dead horse here, Fitz, but I think that's the thing that confuses me the most with the Data Ames situation, because I figured he was going to play a lot. I mean, there's a very clear path, I think, depending on how the start of the year would unfold, that he could be in the starting lineup next season. That's the thing that confuses me. And I like the kid's game, and I was hoping he was going to stick around so we could see him flourish, but that's the one that confuses me the most.
I agree. I think he received some bad advice, but it's people he trusts, so he listened to him. And if he sits out there a while, I won't be shocked if they reunite, if Kansas State opens the door back open to him. Because, as I said, I don't think he's going to find the level of program he really wants. And maybe at that point he'll realize I belong at K-State. Well, let's see if I can go back. I'm going to keep my eye on that.
On the other side of that coin, though, I think one of the things that I've been most impressed by with Coach Tang and his staff and what they've done in terms of addition through the portal this year, most of, if not all of these dudes have multiple years of eligibility. Fall's got a ton of eligibility left. Housen's got 2 years. McDaniel, Jones, they've all got 2 years. And I know you can transfer any time now, and that makes things difficult year to year. But at least in theory, I find that to be encouraging, that you can try to build some consistency with these veteran guys in the system for a couple of years. Is that something that stood out to you as well?
Yeah, it does. They had been in this cycle for 2 years of getting players that were one and done. And I think they realize now, maybe we should, if we're going to go through this effort, get a couple of years out of these people. Kassan's going to be 3 years. He's going to be, the holdover for the whole time. And I think this is going to be good. I think they will be focused a little bit more on one and dones here as it gets competitive for players, but it's still early. The transfer portal just closed for people entering. That doesn't mean if you're in the portal, you're stuck there. You still can be recruited. You just had to be into the portal by the end of May 1. And I think there's a lot of good players out there that can help Kansas State, but some players are taking their time and, making deliberate decisions.
I know you were talking about Khalif Battle a little bit earlier. Just to follow up on that, what are the odds right now for K-State, do you think, about landing the Arkansas transfer?
And I've gone from about 80% to maybe 50. It looks like Villanova, I just thought, might have picked up a guard. I don't know. Gonzaga's something he wants to do way out there in a lower league. I think there was a real connection at K-State. But again, he wanted to check out his options. He wasn't just going to jump on an offer. I think K-State will still win this battle, but it's getting a little nerve-wracking for fans and maybe even the coaches.
Tim Fitzgerald, he's the publisher of GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You hear me say it every single week. Go be a VIP. It is absolutely worth it. You're going to find scoops that you cannot get anywhere else on the VIP side at Wabash Station. Make sure you are subscribed to Go Power Cat on YouTube. And, of course, go follow Fitz on Twitter, where his handle is @LifeOfFitz. Fitz, we appreciate the time. Thanks for being flexible with the schedule this week. And enjoy Whiskey Myers coming up tomorrow.
I know. Thanks, boys. I'm going to get wild right now. I'm going to take a nap. That's what the weekend means for old people. It's sad.
Hey, it's good preparation. That's taking care of your body. That is a very mature way to handle it.
Yeah, that's it. That's definitely what I'm doing.
Thanks, Fitz.
Thanks, boys.
That's Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. We've got 1 hour left on 580 Sports Talk today. We'll lead it off with our headlines after the news right back here on 580 Sports Talk. It's the final hour of 580 Sports Talk for the day, for the week. I'm Brendan Dworzinski. He's Dan Lucero. He's Spencer Dupuis. One more hour of the show. Your texts, your YouTube comments are welcome. 580 Sports Talk headlines, Royals baseball. We'll get to all of it before 6 o'clock. Royals are back tonight. The boys in blue taking on the reigning World Series champion Texas Rangers. 3-game weekend set, 6:40 first pitch tonight, 6 o'clock pregame start time, pregame, postgame, and the game itself can all be heard right here on 580 WMEW and FM 104.9. The Royals today advised, they put this out on Twitter, for all fans planning to visit the K, please be aware of the ongoing construction on northbound I-435 at exit 63B and on southbound I-435. We strongly advise planning ahead and considering alternative routes to the K during this time. So I believe that would impact you if you're coming from our area, if you wanted to drive in via K10 and go through Overland Park to get to the game, I believe, if my understanding of the greater Kansas City area map is correct.
I think that's right.
Whereas if you just take 70, it's a straight line. You're just going right there, and you will get to the Blue Ridge cutoff, and you will get off there and exit for the stadium. So if you
is 70 the free or the toll?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the toll.
I am now a proud will be in a week or two a proud holder of a K pass.
Hey, you got the K tag.
Well, I got my license plate in the mail today.
Good.
So then I had to type in my license plate number.
Yeah.
In order to get the K tag.
Sure.
Right.
So yeah, it's going to be coming soon.
Yeah, it is.
You're in with both feet on this,
Yeah.
Spencer.
Yeah,
You're with both feet on this whole Kansan thing. I love it.
I'm full-fledged now. I'm a full-fledged Kansan.
I will tell you, you are going to enjoy driving to Kansas City International Airport a whole lot more taking I-70 and then 435 as opposed to taking K4 all the way to Atchison and then south.
Yeah. I mean, I did it before, but it was just annoying to have to stop and pay a toll.
Sure. Yeah, it'll be
easy for everybody when we go
it.
cashless this summer, but it'll be super convenient to do the K-Tag stuff.
Hey, we finally got somebody to comment that we've been wanting to comment since the top of the show.
Oh?
Yeah, we got John Sherman's new ballpark.
There we go.
We've been waiting.
No traffic issues if we tore down Arrowhead and Kaufman Ghetto. I mean, I suppose, but you'd have traffic issues going elsewhere.
Yeah, you would.
I was talking to Abby about this the other night. If they built a stadium over by the Legends, they'd have to build another interstate. Like, you can't get to a concert at Sandstone without being in some of the worst traffic you will find in Kansas City. It is a bear over there. Like, you would have to genuinely build multiple new roads to alleviate some of it for a freaking Chiefs game or Royals game for that matter. So that is something that the state of Kansas would have to figure out. Also why I say build it on the opposite side of K10 from where the new Panasonic plant is going to be. I think it would be on the other side of the road, or at least on the other side of where the Chinette facility is.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I'm sorry. I also mispronounced it. Our guy John Sherman's new ballpark wants me to clarify it's Arrowhead Stadium and Kaufman Ghetto.
Okay.
Yes, of course. What a bit. All right, let's get to today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. My first headline, some personnel news in the NFL. We were talking a little bit earlier about the other contenders in the AFC. Well, a couple of them have made some small moves today. One of those free agent receivers that I believe came up yesterday, he is going to the Miami Dolphins. That is Odell Beckham Jr. He has signed a 1-year deal with the Miami Dolphins. Odell last season played for Baltimore, was okay. I mean, it was fine. I don't think he did anything especially great. Had one sick catch, one really cool catch in the front right corner of an end zone. I don't remember when that was. Other than that, he was wide receiver 3 for a really good offense. And just kind of an season. The Bills, meanwhile, are pulling lottery tickets. They put 3 singles into the machine at the grocery store, and they just pulled out 3 scratch-offs. Wide receiver Chase Claypool, defensive lineman Dwayne Smoot, linebacker Deion Jones. Deion Jones has had good moments in his career. Dwayne Smoot actually had a pretty good season last year. I believe that was when he played for Jacksonville.
I think it's
Juwan Smoot, excuse me. You're correct. Chase Claypool's been really bad since his second year in Pittsburgh. So,
like a punchline more than a player at this point.
He's been horrible, genuinely really bad. I wish him the best of luck. I wish Buffalo the best of luck, I guess. I don't know.
Buffalo needed wide receivers. We talked about what their receiver depth chart looked like, and it was like just some dudes. Just some guys.
Yeah, in his first 2 years in Pittsburgh, Chase Claypool caught 121 passes for 1,733 yards, 11 touchdowns. And for 2 years, that's pretty good as a number 2 receiver. Since then, 2022 and 2023, he has a grand total of 54 catches for 528 yards and has played for 3 different teams. Badly for all of them.
Yeah, and it's not just the lack of production. It's he's got some bad tape.
And bad attitude.
Yeah.
That's another
which has
thing.
led to the bad tape.
Yes, no, absolutely. Been, what's the phrase? A malcontent is kind of what he's been. It wasn't good enough in Pittsburgh. Then he had bad tape in Chicago and it went sour there. Went to Miami and was really bad right away. Just not good.
Texter from the 785 in the top student mail supply text line says he's the new Kelvin Benjamin, which is a pretty good comp. I don't know that Claypool's gotten fat like Benjamin did.
It's fat!
But I look forward to him turning up on the Chiefs then in a couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That would be a treat. Chiefs fans with a receiver like that. Woof. So those are a couple of personnel moves from around the NFL today. I don't know. I don't know that either of these really moves the needle all that much. The Odell Beckham thing, I find the conversations about him so funny. He was really good in New York. Really, really good. Went to Cleveland because he just didn't work well, wanted a contract. New York wanted to wait. It was a whole thing. Went to Cleveland, had a bad attitude. It did not work out well there. He and Baker Mayfield were not a good fit. He's been injured a bunch. I just find so much of the conversation about him to be so not worth our time. The funniest conversation about him that I have seen in the last 2 years is, man, he was going to win Super Bowl MVP before he got hurt in Super Bowl 56. Do you know what his stats were before he got hurt in Super Bowl 56?
Tell us.
2 catches, 52 yards, and a touchdown. They're good.
Yeah, he did have one very impactful play.
Cooper Kupp had 8 catches over 100 yards and a touchdown in the game. Why do we have to lie? Why do we have to just make this stuff up? He had a good play and then got hurt on another routine catch. Why do we have to make up stuff about these guys? I don't get it. They're already superheroes. What they do is modern day gladiator stuff. Why do we have to make up lies? I don't understand it. But those are your big NFL personnel moves for the day.
I have a headline. It's not really a headline. It's just a story. But I want to make some jokes about it. It's from Ari Myrov, who covers the NFL for the 33rd team. Jets rookie wide receiver Malachi Corley, who was drafted in the second round, I believe, out of Western Kentucky, says that Aaron Rodgers has offered to let him stay in his guest house and that Corley plans to accept the offer. Corley said he's been texting a lot with Rodgers and hopes to learn as much as possible from him.
That's a bad
red alert.
Yeah.
Red alert. Red alert.
That's a really bad
Sound the
spot
alarms.
to be in if you're Malachi Corley. Because if you say no, I don't want to hang out in your weird conspiracy dungeon, then he's gonna not be
targets.
A good teammate to you.
Probably not get targets.
No, he will
might
hold
take
that
it
against
personally.
you. But if you accept, then you got to go stay in the weird conspiracy dungeon.
Here are all the light bulbs. I took these out for reasons.
It is dark. Also, here are drugs. What kind of drugs? Drugs.
These will free your mind.
Yeah, he's gonna be.
Welcome to Aaron Rodgers' guest house. Here is a subscription to InfoWars and some drugs you can't pronounce.
Here is ayahuasca and not the stuff you can get on Amazon.
Here are some of the worst YouTube subscriptions you've ever seen in your life.
We have a chance. If the Jets don't win this year, be a playoff team this year, there is a very real chance that of all the people who work for the New York Jets Incorporated, 6 of them return in 2025. And Garrett Wilson might be the only player. And everyone else is going to be out on the street.
Are you saying this season's an extinction level event
Yes.
for the New York Jets?
Yes, the meteor is close. Like, if it does not work, if Aaron Rodgers is healthy, and to be frank, I don't think we should just assume that he's going to be healthy. He's 40 years old coming off a torn Achilles.
Yeah, we don't really have a comparison to this.
And he already, for years, has had sapped athleticism. I mean, you remember from when he was in his prime in Green Bay, Rodgers could move.
Yeah.
He wasn't fast, but he had kind of that Mahomes ability where you don't respect the running and then he kills you with it on 3rd and 6 in a clutch moment. He was always really good at that. He did not have that his last few years in Green Bay. He's now torn his Achilles. He's 40. That's not an easy thing to do as a quarterback when everyone else on the defense's job is to hit you really hard. That's a hard thing to bounce back from. I don't doubt the arm talent at all. His arm is still there, as far as I know, but I just don't think we should bank on him being healthy right away. And if he's not, well, then what the hell are they? I don't know. But I genuinely think if they do not make the playoffs this year, if they are a disappointment again, Robert Saleh, gone, all of his assistants, gone, the whole roster is going to get cut. There's just, screw it. What's the point?
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson, you stay. Everyone else get out. Well, why would you keep anyone?
Unless they're going to keep deluding themselves and say, no, we're a quarterback away. Now, well, then, okay, who do you go and get? Because chances are you're not going to be bad enough this coming year to pick in a spot where you can go get Carson Beck or Shedeur Sanders.
Just like they weren't this year. Yeah. And granted, they were banking on Aaron Rodgers coming back, so you didn't need a quarterback. But what if they had needed a number 1 receiver, or they had needed to go get a quarterback? What's the point?
No, you built this roster to succeed in the window in which you had Aaron Rodgers, and if you do not succeed in that window, you kind of have to blow it up.
It's a bad, bad spot to be in.
Meanwhile, Malachi Corley is going to show up on the first day of training camp and have some thoughts about, like, fluoride in the water supply.
Yeah. What do you think those planes are leaving up there? That's a famous story from ESPN. I don't remember who wrote it, but they did a feature where they talked to all of Aaron Rodgers' backups from his script, Matt Flynn and Deshaun Kaiser and all these other dudes. And they're like, oh, yeah, no, first day at practice, Aaron Rodgers asked me if I believed in 9/11.
Yeah, that was Deshaun Kaiser.
Yeah.
Yeah, Deshaun Kaiser said, that was the first thing he said to me was, do you think 9/11 really happened?
Like, what do you say? Like, this dude is a Hall of Famer with a ton of influence, and I'd like to get along with him because we're going to be coworkers. But
I can only imagine what he's going to say when he goes to goes to become part of the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
when he's inducted.
That Hall of Fame speech is going to be something else.
Yeah. They're going to have to put that on HBO after dark.
He's going to thank his teammates, and they're going to warm up the orchestra.
Spencer, what you got for your first headline?
So it's kind of a mix mash of headlines. So
okay.
There's framework now for college sports revenue sharing that could be on the way. According to some sources through ESPN's reporting, it's part of the settlement for the $2.7 billion settlement that they're trying to conclude in the House versus the NCAA lawsuit. One thing that I took out of that, there's going to be some revenue sharing, but part of the lawsuit is that I just saw. Let me pull it back up here. I have it highlighted. According to Yahoo Sports, the settlement would include a plan to implement roster limits for all sports and the expansion of scholarships to those limits. So in baseball, there would no longer be a limit of 11.7 scholarships per team. Every team would have as many scholarships as roster positions. So there's going to be more scholarships in college athletics now if that framework goes through.
Okay, so the upside of this is, hey, if you're going to play D1 athletics, you're going to get your full scholarship, which is great. That's awesome. The downside of this is, one, there will be schools that are going to cut programs because they feel like they cannot afford this.
That is true.
This seems unfair to pick on the HBCU conferences for various reasons. But like, if you are the SWAC and you have historically not been funded very well for myriad reasons, you think baseball's going to be sticking around all that much? Like, hey, we're worried about football, worried about men's, women's basketball. We are a good track school. We're good at tennis, whatever else. Like we can't make it shake. Like we can't afford to have 25 or 30 scholarships or whatever. we're not going to be able to do that. We don't have the kind of revenue that these other conferences have. And it's not just the HBCUs. They're an easy example, but think of like the NEC or think of the WAC, even the Southland. Like, those are probably schools that are going to say, we think it will make more sense to spend money on the sports that are on ESPN Plus or have a local cable deal, our football and men's, women's basketball, maybe women's volleyball. Say we got to get rid of some of these. We got to get rid of women's tennis. We got to get rid of men's swimming and diving. I'm not saying that's right. I hope that doesn't happen, but that's my fear, is that's where this would head.
Some of those much smaller schools, though, like the athletic population is such a significant part of their student body. Maybe they have to make the decision that, look, we need sports to maintain
enrollment.
Mm-hmm. Maybe we just can't play with the big boys anymore. Maybe we need to consider D2 or D3. Maybe we need to consider NAIA. Maybe we need to consider not trying to keep up with Joneses that we're never going to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Division I athletics, as we know them presently, are not for the Northeastern Conference or the Southland Conference. Maybe they're not. If you can't afford to give these athletes a cut of the revenues that you are trying to bring in, then maybe you need to play at a level where you're not bringing in that kind of revenue.
I don't disagree. No, I think that's a totally fair way to look at it. And frankly, along with thinking that the major 30 teams or whatever should go form the College Football Super League, I am of the belief that there should be a major reorganizing of Division I and Division II, because I think too many schools have probably moved up. I think too many schools probably that at one point in time it made sense to be Division I, probably should think about going down to Division II, a reorganization of what FBS and FCS is. I think that would make a whole lot of sense.
There are absolutely schools that have made that decision. It has been the wrong one. Are you familiar with Birmingham Southern College?
I am.
Birmingham Southern College, like the oldest liberal arts institution in the state of Alabama. They played Division I athletics. They were in the Big South. And they were like, it's costing us too much money. Let's go down to Division III. You know where they're going to be playing athletics next year? They're not going to have a school next year. They're closing. They're closing their doors. And I'm not saying that athletics is strictly responsible for that, but it started a pattern of spending that they could not keep up with and manage.
I also think that while it's not a popular political thing to do, and a great example of this is Idaho. Idaho was FBS football. They dropped it to FCS. They said, hey, look, monetarily, it makes more sense for us. And that means you got to give up your rivalry with Boise State. That means you're probably not playing Washington State, which is 20 miles from the Idaho campus. Probably not playing them anymore, or at least not very often. But it's the thing we've got to do for our university, not politically popular at all. Matt Brown of Extra Points has written about that a ton over time. But it was the right thing to do. You know what they are in football now? They're really competitive. They were a playoff team in the FCS this year. They were terrible when their last few years in FBS. It's something that probably makes some sense. And frankly, I think a lot of schools, while it might not be popular politically, at least right off the bat, you can say, make it clearly, hey, this is better for us to not be spending on travel from California to Virginia for a conference game. Like, that doesn't make sense for us. Like it might make sense for some other schools. So I think a reorganization is important. I also want to add real quick, I think this is my personal belief, and I could probably do a little more research on it, but I actually think that a revenue sharing model might make more sense for major college athletics than a true employment model. I don't necessarily disagree with athletes that want to, unionize or be full employees. I think there are probably some downsides to that. Like, if you're an employee, does that mean you can be fired at any time? What does the scholarship thing look like? Not that as it stands is all good, but just something to consider. Whereas revenue sharing, I wonder how much of the current model needs to be changed outside of literally sharing the revenue. That's my belief. Maybe I'll change on that, but that is important. These guys make you so much money. Football and basketball and women's basketball now, certainly. And I think women's volleyball in the near future is going to get there too, for what it's worth. They deserve a cut of the money, and they deserve a fair cut of the money. Let's make that very clear. So the sooner this gets through, I think the better for everybody. Let's, while we have some time, let's just jump right into, Dan, you want to do the playoff roundup here?
Yes, I would be happy to do. Spencer, you want to do the playoff roundup?
It's time for the 580 Sports Talk playoff roundup.
Look at that. communication, the setup, that was good.
Yeah, that was tic-tac-toe passing there. That was really well done.
I was also ready this time at 4:58 when I went back to the page and made sure I didn't need to change the ID.
And mouse hovering over it.
Don't have to get ready if you stay ready, Spencer. The NBA saw 2 closeout games last night. For the second year in a row, the Milwaukee Bucks are eliminated in the first round as the Indiana Pacers end the Bucks season, the 6 seed over the 3 seed in that first round Eastern Conference series. Also in a bonkers game 6, the New York Knicks eliminated the Philadelphia 76ers. That was a 6-game series with the 2 seed Knicks advancing. Do you know what the point differential was for the total 6 games?
Knicks +1.
Yep.
Crazy.
Wild. You do never see that in a series like that.
It was really fun basketball last night. Yeah. Really, really fun.
Very entertaining game. Jalen Brunson's been unbelievable for the Knicks. The Sixers got some big shots down the stretch, just not enough to be able to hold off New York, who's into the second round for a second straight year. Tonight, the 2 remaining series have game 6s. In the Western Conference, the Dallas Mavericks can close out the Los Angeles Clippers at home, while in the East, Orlando hosts Cleveland, trying to keep their season alive. I have not seen a single second or highlight from the Orlando-Cleveland series. It's like it's happening on a different planet.
No, I don't know anything about it. I don't know who's playing well. I saw the score in the previous game. Cleveland won 104-103. Looks like it was a great game. And if I had seen it, I'm sure I would have loved it. But no, I've not seen anything about it.
So
other than the score.
The first round could wrap up tonight. If not, I believe both game 7s are scheduled for Sunday. Round 2 of the playoffs actually set to start tomorrow. Game 1 out west in a series that many are saying could be the best playoff series at any point in the postseason, with Minnesota and Denver starting their series in Denver on Saturday night. In the NHL, the Toronto Maple Leafs have staved off elimination once again without their 69-goal man, Austin Matthews. They defeat the Boston Bruins last night in Toronto to send that series to a Game 7. Toronto and losing Game 7s, name a more iconic duo in the NHL. So that Game 7 is, I believe, on Saturday. Tonight, must-win Game 6s for the home teams in the Western Conference. Nashville and Vegas facing elimination as they host Vancouver and Dallas, respectively.
The Maple Leafs are going to lose Game 7. Although Boston has not exactly covered itself in glory in recent playoffs either.
No, and they've got a bit of a goaltender problem right now. But again, it's Toronto in Game 7.
Matthews going to play?
I have no idea, but it's Toronto in Game 7.
Yeah, hard to
Matthews
pick
could play, and they could reincarnate Wendell Clark and Matt Sundin, and they'd still find a way to lose a Game 7.
NBA-wise, how many I saw this on Twitter earlier, and I was going to ask you about it. How many teams do you think reasonably, and I know you have a Denver slant, obviously, but reasonably could you argue could win? You can squint and see them winning a title, and how many of those teams are in the West?
I think there are only 3 teams.
Out on OKC?
I am out on OKC. They're not big enough. They're too light in the seat. They're not big enough. Either Minnesota or Denver will just physically bully them in a 7-game series. I think the winner of Minnesota-Denver wins the title. Boston is the only team that I think is a real impediment out east.
I don't trust Boston. I don't.
I'm a lot more iffy on Boston now that Porzingis is hurt. A lot more iffy on them without him. Like, he's such a matchup issue for teams and really helps them on both ends. And if he's going to be out for, it sounds like he'll miss at least the entirety of the second round series and could be out even longer than that. But I don't think they're going to have any problem with Orlando or Cleveland. The Knicks, I just don't think are deep enough. They had 2 bench points, I think, last night.
A Tibbs masterclass.
Yeah, well,
the dream Tom Thibodeau game.
Yeah, and he's just going to wear his guys down to a nub. That's what Thibodeau
he does.
So, I don't think those guys are going to have enough steam, even if they get through Indiana. Man, New York, Indiana. Doesn't that bring the feeling back?
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to Spike Lee and Reggie Miller. That makes me feel like a kid again.
I do want Celtics Knicks, though. I am very much looking forward to that potential series.
I know we've probably got some Thunder fans in the listening audience. They are the team of closest proximity, I believe, NBA team of closest proximity to our listening area. Again, I think their time is coming. I just don't think it's now. I think they're too light in the pants. Chet Holmgren weighs 110 pounds.
Yeah.
And he's the only big man they've got. And I think they can beat Dallas or the Clippers, But what are you going to do against Nikola Jokic and all the big wings that Gordon and MPJ of Denver? What are you going to do with all the size Minnesota has? Like, I don't know. Minnesota OKC would be such a repellent series in terms of like aesthetics.
Yeah.
Those are two really good defensive teams who sometimes have trouble like getting buckets. They rely on a lot of like mid-range stuff. They don't have great playmaking like Denver does.
Yeah.
So that'd be a very unpleasant series to watch. It'd be those two teams hitting each other with a sack of doorknobs for 7 games. I would like to avoid that altogether and see Denver beat Minnesota, which I think they're going to do, but I think it's going to take the full 7.
I think Denver is going to win it all again for what it's worth. By the way, for those who might not know a whole lot about Tom Thibodeau, Josh Hart is one of the better players for the Knicks. Tough, good players, good college player at Villanova as well.
Like him a lot, yeah.
They played 293 minutes in their series against the 76ers. 6 games, 293 minutes of basketball. How many do you think Josh Hart played?
293 minutes? 286.
278. 6 full games, 1 that went to overtime. He sat on the bench for 15 minutes. That is so Tom Thibodeau. It is unbelievable.
They don't build in enough off days in the postseason to be able to keep that up for 3 more.
3 more. No, absolutely
not. I love the home crowds in New York. It's like, I am iffy on the whole idea of, well, this sport is better when this team is good. You know, you hear people say that all the time. And I don't think that's true.
That's a major Cowherd take.
Yes, it's a big Colin Cowherd energy from that take. Like, oh, isn't baseball better when the Yankees are in contention? Like, I don't believe that to be true for 1 second. But I do think there are buildings and there are atmospheres that make the postseason that much more special when there are games in that building or in front of that crowd. And Madison Square Garden is like the one of those in basketball.
Yeah, that's for sure. That'll do it for today's 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll preview the Royals a little bit later on this hour. We'll get to some more 580 Sports Talk. Your texts to the Top City Metal Supply text line and YouTube comments as well. Coming up after the break on 580 Sports Talk. Some college sports news and notes to get you here on 580 Sports Talk. Number one, wanted to give a big shout out to Washburn Ichabod's men's tennis. They are your 2024 MIAA GAC tournament champions. How about that for the Washburn Ichabods? Very cool for Washburn tennis. Another ring for the Ichabod programs this year. Also, this just coming out, this is from Joe Tipton, who covers and does photoshops for On3, their national basketball recruiting. Tweeted out 5 minutes ago, Rutgers transfer Clifford Amori, one of the top big men in the portal, has cut his list to the following 4 schools: Alabama, Georgetown, Kansas State, North Carolina. Will announce his decision this Sunday. Okay, the good to be in the Final Four. You got to be there and have a chance at the end. That's what you want if you're Kansas State, after your top portal prospect. That's a good thing. Here's the bad thing. It is going to be really hard to beat out Alabama and North Carolina.
Always is, isn't it?
Yeah, that one's going to be a challenge. Honestly, if you're Amori, you've got to be kind of bummed you're not going to stay at Rutgers, right? They've got one of the best recruiting classes in the country coming in next year.
Yeah, a lot of people pretty tied in have said they were really surprised that he left, because they've got like 2 of the 5 best high school players in the country going to Rutgers next year.
Yeah.
Like next year looked like it could be a really big year for Rutgers basketball, and that's why it was strange that Amori decided to hit the portal. Maybe that's, I mean, you can guess at what a kid's intentions are, and you never land on what the right answer is. But yeah, I have to imagine from the Rutgers perspective, it's really disappointing that he's not going to suit up for them next year.
Makes you wonder if Rutgers exhausted, and I don't know exactly how all this works from school to school, but makes you wonder if they exhausted a lot of their NIL funding and NIL coffers for Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, their 2 recruits.
Kind of my thought too.
It is wild to see a list of top 4 recruits in the country, all going to 2 schools. 2 of them to Duke. Cayman Malik, who is the big man from Africa, 7'1" center, and Cooper Flagg, the number 1 player in the class. He'll be next year's number 1 pick in the NBA draft. And then Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper, who are going to Rutgers. That is crazy. And the 5th-ranked player in the class is going to Baylor. It is wild what next year's recruiting class, or this year's recruiting class, looks like. KU's best player, by the way, number 11 in the class. That's Flory Badunga. The other guys in the top 10, North Carolina, Arizona State, Miami, Texas. That is a very weird group of schools for the top 10 recruits in the country to be committed to.
Speaking of NBA draft, have you seen the list of invited players to the NBA draft combine?
I did see that both of the Jayhawks in the draft process will be headed there, both Johnny Furphy and Kevin McCullough.
Did you see which K-State players are going?
I know that.
That's a trick question.
Yeah.
Spencer's right on it. They are not on
Kaluma not invited.
I think he got invited last year.
Or
did he pull out before the draft combine happened?
Let's see if we can go and find that information. Yes, he was invited last year.
No invite this year. He is in the transfer portal. They made that official over the weekend, or during the course of this week, that Kaluma is not just in the draft process, but also in the transfer portal. But again, before May 1st, like there's no sense in not getting in the transfer portal if you're in the draft process.
Yeah.
So that if you get out of the draft process, but your team decides to do some transfer portal business over you, then you can maybe go find somewhere else to play. Coleman Hawkins out of Illinois did the same thing.
And that was a big deal because, whoa, Mr. Illinois, Coleman Hawkins, he's thinking about leaving. And he put out a statement like, hey, look, I love Illinois. I don't have any plans to leave the draft, but if you know what hits the fan, I want insurance, which that's smart. Why wouldn't you do that?
And I feel like Kaluma might be doing the same thing. And now I'm very curious, now that he's not a part of the draft combine, I'm very curious what Arthur Kaluma's future looks like, where he'll be playing basketball in 2024.
He is such an interesting case because I feel like he's going to have a spot at K-State if he comes back. They will keep a spot open for him. They have the room right now. He would help them offensively for certain, but he's right now. Feeling he's one of the guys who just is kind of done with college basketball, which
Yeah, and if he is, like, go get paid somewhere. Like,
Yeah.
go play professionally where you can get paid to go play professionally. Not everybody plays pro in the NBA. You can have a really good career overseas. And Arthur Kaluma, like, the thing for Kaluma that's got a sting is I'm sure the biggest thing they told him in last year's draft process was you got to be a better shooter. He went out and shot 35% from three this year, which was better, a market improvement. Wasn't good enough. And now he doesn't even get invited back to the draft combine.
I will say this. If he does want to push it and just go pro now, I assume he will get an invite to the G League combine or the G League elite camp or whatever they call it. There is a recent example of that working out for a local player. Jalen Wilson did not get an NBA draft combine invite until he had gone to the G League camp. He was one of, I think, 2 or 3 or 4, not more than 4 guys last year who went to the G League camp. The NBA combine then said, hey, you played well enough. We want to work you out.
Yeah.
He ends up getting drafted in the 50s. He played pretty well stretch for Brooklyn. Now, that's an awful Brooklyn team, but he played well.
Got a little money, too.
Yeah, he got converted to a full contract, which I'm so happy for Jay Will that happened for him. He deserves it. What a great story. What a great dude. But that path is out there. And if you are just saying, hey, I'm ready. I want to go pro. I'm done with college. I'm done with college basketball. I just want to make money, whether it's in the G League, the NBA, overseas, whatever. I'm just going to go do it. I have a hard time blaming you, honestly. There's so much basketball all over the world where you can go play now.
You can play anymore.
What do you think K-State does if they don't land Amori? Do you think that changes any plans right now?
They got to shift focus to another big. Like, they need a big, like, not just like tall man. They need big man, especially if Tim Fitzgerald indicated that maybe Baye falls more of a 4 than a 5, which I don't know what kind of shooter he is. I don't know if he's a threat for, but maybe they see him more in the Gaston role where he's switchable between a 4 and a 5 and just more of a rim runner than a 4 stretching player. Then they would need a center regardless. They need a big body. They don't have the Will McNair, Bebe Eziola player yet. And Amori, though he's younger than both of those guys were 1-year guys. Like, physically, that's what he can be.
Yeah.
Like, and, like, I think his ceiling as a player is much higher than the ceiling for either of those guys. Like, it's really exciting. If K-State gets Amori, that's a big time.
I would guess that there are things in the works that probably being kept under wraps right now to try to, have someone in the pipeline to go land in case they don't end up with Amori. I'm right now looking at the Athletics transfer portal rankings. There are not many centers who are still available and not committed elsewhere. Ugana Onyenso, from Kentucky. He just entered the portal pretty late in the process. He is still out there. Outside of that, it's Cliff Amori, and that is pretty much it. So if you want a true 5, you better. Let's take a quick timeout. The Royals will be back in action tonight, opening up a series against the Texas Rangers, the reigning World Series champs. We'll break it down next on 580 Sports Talk. up here at the top of the hour, pregame coverage for Royals baseball here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. Back at home today, opening up a 3-game weekend set with the reigning World Series champions. Your Royals lineup tonight: Garcia, Witt, Pasquantino, the top third. Vinny will be your DH. Salvador Perez at first base again in the cleanup spot. Massey at second. Freddie Fermin catching. Melendez, Renfroe, and Isbell left, right, and center, your bottom third. Brady Singer on the bump for the Royals today. He'll take on Michael Lorenzen, your starting pitcher for the Texas Rangers. The other starters for this weekend: tomorrow, it will be Michael Wacha versus Dane Dunning. That game is sold out. It is Star Wars night, May the 4th. Aha. And then on Sunday, the Royals have not yet officially announced who's going to get the start. John Gray, former Colorado Rocky, is going to get the start for Texas.
So Texas is actually behind Kansas City in terms of run scoring in the American League. They're 6th in the league in runs scored. Their best hitter is Corey Seager, and he hasn't gotten going at all.
Mm-hmm.
He missed all but like 2 days of spring training, and I guess the first 29 games have been in spring training. He's hitting just 219 with a 594 OPS. But Adolis Garcia, the World Series hero from last year, has been really good. Marcus Simeon's been really good. Daniel Lau, coming off the injured list, is picked up where he's left off. And they've got a big strikeout staff. They're 5th in the American League in strikeouts. Their bullpen, remember Kirby Yates? He's their closer now. Hasn't lost 12 innings and has 5 saves because Jose Leclerc has really struggled. He was their closer last year during their World Series run. So another good test. This is a team that is passionate to be a contender. They're obviously the defending world champions. We are looking for the Royals to test themselves. And other than games against the White Sox, they've had some pretty good tests here in the early stages. So this is another opportunity at home where they played really well, 12-5 at the K, in front of some good crowds, to earn another impressive series win.
Kind of an up and down start to the year for Texas. In their first 8 games, they went 6-2. Then they lost 6 of their next 8 and ended up 8-8. And since then, they are, what would that be, 9-7 since. They played just over 500 ball so far through the year. Have won 3 of their last 4 and 4 of their last 6 in 2 series against Cincinnati and Washington. Both of those coming at home. On the road, they did take 3 out of 4 on the road in Detroit, middle of the month of April. Also lost a series to Atlanta on the road and took a series from Tampa, who stinks. Tampa Bay is not good. There's a reason David Schoenfield of ESPN gave them an F when we went through those baseball first month grades earlier on this week. Brady Singer on the bump tonight. What are you hoping to see out of Brady in this game against Texas?
Hoping to see good Brady. Hoping to see the good fastball, use that 4-seamer effectively, and get swings and misses with the sliders. Gonna have to be sharp with that pitch. A lot of left-handers in the Texas lineup that they can throw at him, and a couple of switch hitters too that can make it difficult on him. So he's gonna have to be really, really sharp, really, really effective with his fastball. And you know, it's a little less important that he's efficient because you have the day off and you didn't get really deep into the plus side of the bullpen in your most recent game as it was. But yeah, if he gets 6 solid from Brady Singer tonight, I like the Royals team.
I think it is also just important for Singer to be able to give you a little bit more. Maybe that's a me thing more than it is an anyone else thing. But I mean, his last 4 starts, 5, 6, and 5 innings pitched. I expect 6+ when Brady Singer's on the mound. I know that's not going to happen every single time, but that should be, I think it's a fair expectation for this guy.
You can have a 5 and fly guy in your rotation. You might even be able to get away with 2, but right now where the Royals are at, there are 2 guys that aren't giving them depth, are back to back in the rotation with Singer and Wacha. And then the 5th spot right now is a question mark. We don't know who they're going to go with on Sunday. It's going to be Alec Marsh. So are they just going to have an egg with the bullpen and see how that goes? We don't really know yet what Sunday starts going to look like. So that does make it, in that sense, more important that both Singer and Wacha give you some quality innings.
Hey, the Nationals got killed by the Rangers yesterday. They took out Eovaldi from that pitch against the Royals. So current number one on the staff isn't having a pitcher this week.
All right, Royals take it. Royals
because of the way the rotation landed. I totally forgot that the Rangers also have DeGrom and Scherzer.
Yeah.
And they're both on the IL.
Yeah. Once they get back, that
I just totally forgot that they both signed. They're both on the team this year.
Eventually, Jacob DeGrom will pitch again, I think, in theory. Maybe. We got to get to one final timeout. We'll come on back. We will wrap up today. We will wrap up this week on 580 Sports Talk with today's final word. Fun week of 580 Sports Talk. Let's do it all again next week. Full show 2 to 6 on Monday. But before we get there, we got to wrap up this week with the final word. Let's go with Spencer. Back-to-back days.
All right. Shout out to MLB TV or MLB/Apple TV. 2 free months, and I'm watching the Nationals right now.
There you go.
But guess who's on the mound?
Patrick Corbin.
Yeah.
Oh.
He did get out of the first inning and didn't give up a home run or a run, so that is solid.
Improvement.
Yeah, ready for the weekend.
Hey, you should watch like Ted Lasso and other stuff.
The Patriots
The
dynasty.
Patriots won. Yeah, absolutely. Final word for me, as Ric Flair famously said, to be the man, you've got to beat the man. It's just a 3-game series in May, but the Royals could add a lot to their credibility if they can take a series from the Rangers this weekend. I look forward to seeing them try. I think it's going to be a great test.
I thought you were going to woo.
Woo!
That's a good one. Final word for me is I know the Chiefs don't necessarily need another wide receiver in that room. Wouldn't it be fun? Wouldn't it be fun to just have another veteran guy you can trust who's going to make a few plays for you? I'm not saying go crazy. I'm not saying go out and trade for someone. But the idea of another weapon is kind of fun to think about. They won a Super Bowl without having great weapons in the wide receiver room. What could they do if they did have better weapons in that group? We are off until Monday. Hope you have a wonderful weekend. I know we will. We'll talk to Matt Verderam coming up on Monday. We'll recap the Royals weekend and a whole lot more. Make sure you go subscribe to us on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the YouTube channel. We will talk to you from 2 to 6 on Monday. Until then, for Dan Lucero, for Spencer Dupuis, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. This has been 580 Sports Talk.